and welcome to TEDx Folkestone 2021. As you can see, we have our live speakers. Woo! They are all here ready to take your questions. We have a very exciting event lined up for you on the topic of a new horizon. Before I get started, a few things to say. We have, of course, all been tested, COVID tested, and we are following social distancing guidelines throughout. Also, a little reminder to everyone, please turn your cameras off. That will allow us to make sure that you see the live stream in all its glory. Okay, so we have a big event coming up for you. These guys have been working so hard behind the scenes to bring you an amazing talk. We have a 3-hour event. And we conveniently have 3 sessions. We have education. Give it up for education. We have community. And we also have creativity. There we go. So 8 talks in total. We will be hitting the hours for each of those sessions. So from 10 till 11, we have education. From 11 till 12, it'll be community. And from 12 to 1, it'll be creativity. And we, of course, are live and interactive. So if you have any questions throughout the duration of the event, please add them to the comments. If you are on Zoom, we'll be coming to those first, but also we'll do our best to get to the Facebook ones as well. Okay, before we get started, for those of you who are new to TED, maybe you're a regular fan, maybe you've just stumbled across it, I'm going to give you a bit of a pop quiz. What does TED stand for? And I'm going to quiz the speakers. Do any of them know? What does TED stand for? What's the T stand for?
Technology talks.
No, not talks. What was it? What do we hear? Technology. Okay. T is technology. E, this is the one that catches people out.
Engineering.
It's not education. It's not engineering. Elephants. I wish it was elephants. That would be pretty good. Extraordinary. It is not. If I point over to David, what would you say?
Everything?
Almost. Entertainment.
Oh.
And finally, D is...
Discovery?
Nope.
Design.
Not discovery.
Desire.
Almost. Chop the end of that word off and you will get there.
Design.
Design. Technology, entertainment, and design. And the X, the cheeky X, you're never going to get this one. Independently organised event. That's that one. Also, to get you used to commenting and get you interacting, who has come from the furthest? We've had live events where we've had people from Brazil, as far as Brazil. Can anyone beat that? Where is everyone from? Tell us in the comments, please. Guys, have you got any friends or family coming from far away? Can you beat Brazil?
Australia.
Australia. Okay, that might just win it straight out of the bag, won't it? US? Awesome.
International Space Station.
Space Station. Oh, have to trump everyone. I do believe, I will have to say, I think he stole that off Greg. I think he stole that comment off Greg. So where are you guys from? Tell us in the comments. We'd love to know, and we'll give you a shout out as we go through. We are live and interactive, as I said, so please keep those comments and questions coming in because, as you can see, they're all live. They are real people. They're ready to go. So I think it's about time. I'm having a little look around, looking at my team. Yes, we have everyone online and ready to go. Okay, I'm getting the thumbs up. We are rolling. So we're going to start this event with the official video from TED.
Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
Thank you so much for joining us today. As you can see, it's a little calmer now. I've kicked the speakers out. They're off, but they will be back when we do the Q&As later on. As you probably saw from that video, we are an independently organised event. This event, TEDx Folkestone, is run under licence from TED, but organised by local people from Folkestone and the surrounding areas. So I have to start by saying a huge thank you to absolutely everybody who has given so much time and energy, and most importantly, enthusiasm to do this brilliant event that we're going to be delivering to you today. So I'm going to tell you a bit about the run through the schedule today. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be starting with education. We have Berry Billingsley and Tommy Blanche. They will be going from 10 till 11. We will then be going from 11 till 12 is the community session. And then at 12 till 1, we will be going for the creativity session, where we have Nikki Lyle, Greg Stobbs, and David Sambuca. How it will work, we will have all of the talks for each session before we then go into the combined Q&A at the end. So when it comes to questions, please submit them at any point, but we will then ask them at the very end. So keep them coming in. Okay, I think it's about time we get on with the event, shall we? So let's get on with our first speaker, shall we? You may recognise her from BBC Tomorrow's World. Do you remember that show? That was her first job as a presenter and a producer on the BBC. She's also worked for the Department of Education in Australia, using science to engage with primary school children, and she is now a Professor of Science Education at Canterbury Christ Church University. So with her talk, Epistemic Insight, Engaging with Life's Big Questions, I give you Professor Berry Billingsley.
We live on a small blue dot of a planet in a vast cosmos. You know, they say it's impossible to imagine how small we are compared to the vastness of space. So as a child, I did try to imagine. I'm Berry Billingsley, and I'm now a professor in science education. And what fascinates me these days is the way we all try to juggle what we think we know from science with what else we believe about ourselves and the world, especially when it comes to big questions like, why does the universe exist? And who are we as human persons? And throughout my 15 years of research, I've been working on a problem, and it has to do with knowledge. And something we don't say to children about knowledge when they're at school. And I don't get it. Why don't we tell them? Because it seems to me it's the one thing that would make everything else make more sense. So to explain, I'm going to start with agency, which is a big goal in education and includes encouraging children to question and think for themselves. Here's how it works in primary school. We have a pretty good idea of what's going to interest our younger students, and a good teacher has a portfolio of puzzles that they can use to keep children curious and motivated about the topics that, actually anyway, we want to teach. Here's one of my favourites, and I call this an ooh moment. Because if you show it to a group of 8-year-olds, they say, ooh, and then after they've tried it for themselves, They say, why? How does it work? And so, not long after the ooh moment, we can have an aha moment when they have a scientific explanation for what they've just seen. When children get to secondary school, it all changes. Instead of directing their natural curiosity towards the topics we want to teach, we rely more and more on the textbook, timetable, subject classroom, and exam. I discovered the full force of these educational devices on the questions children ask in their lessons when I was teaching in a secondary school, and I was asked to mentor a new teacher who turned out to be a teacher of RE, religious education. So one day, at the end of a science lesson, I followed my year 9s, those are 13-year-olds, out of my classroom, down the corridor and into the RE classroom. Oh, they looked shocked. That's not what teachers do. Teachers stay in their own classrooms. So once they'd settled down, the lesson got started, and now I was shocked. In my lesson, we'd been talking about the water cycle and evaporation, lovely, safe science topics. And just a few moments later in this classroom, we were talking about whether there's a God who can answer prayers and what it means to live a good life. I thought, thank goodness they don't ask me these questions. I don't think I'd know how to answer. And then I thought, I wonder why they don't ask me these questions. They're obviously enjoying the discussion. How do children know which questions it's appropriate to ask in each of their subjects? And what happens to all of their questions that don't fit into the neat little boxes of the timetable? And right there, you have the problem with secondary school. You see, we've become so good at putting boxes and walls around the disciplines, that's science, mathematics, geography, history, that we seem to forget to say to children that most of the questions you meet in life are not like the questions you meet in those individual disciplines. And many questions in life are big questions that stretch across subjects and need more than one discipline if we're to get to an answer. So if that's the problem, does it matter? Or then again, maybe it's just a bit obvious that some questions are big questions and need more than one discipline to get to an answer. Okay, so I'm going to try you on a scenario and then see what you think. So let's take two disciplines that we study in school, science and history. And the question, why did the Titanic sink? So I could investigate this question scientifically with a wave tank, that's a tank of water, and a model Titanic. And I could try to find out, why did the Titanic fill up with water and go down so fast? Or I could investigate in history. And then I could look at letters and newspaper reports and diaries to try to find out about the people who were there at the time. Okay, so here's the thing. At the end of my science investigation, I might decide that the people to blame for the Titanic going down are the shipbuilders. Because after all, they put in those faulty rivets and compartments that were meant to keep the water out and actually let it in. But in history, I might say that the captain had a lot to do with it. After all, he was the one who took them up close to the North Pole and into the path of icebergs. So who's to blame? What do you think? Captain or shipbuilders? Well, them all, right? Probably a few more people as well. Yeah, but here is the thing. Would I know that if I'd carried out my investigation in science? Would I realise that if I want to ask this bigger question, who's to blame, I need to open the door, go down the corridor and into the history classroom to see what they're saying in there. Think back to when you were at school. Were there many lessons where you were encouraged to say to your science teacher, that's very interesting. Do you think we should check in with the historians now to see what they've got to say? Or, as I think I did you just go out of science thinking you'd been told everything you needed to know? And of course, in a way, you had. You'd been told how to do an investigation in science. The problem is, you hadn't been told how to compare science with history or how to relate science to big questions. And just consider this. If that gap is duplicated in schools across the land, in schools across the world, that is a huge population of people who are leaving school without the insight they need to say, what makes a question a good one for science, or for history, or for both? So that's the problem and why I think it matters. What are we going to do? What I'd like to do is to teach epistemic insight in schools. And epistemic insight means knowledge about knowledge, or knowledge about disciplines and how they interact. So these are the lessons where you can ask big questions that bridge science, religion, and the wider humanities. Questions like, can a robot own its own ideas? Can it be a good friend? How should we take care of each other during a pandemic? And why does the universe exist? And you remember I said at the beginning, I'm really interested in how we all juggle what we think we know from science with what else we believe about ourselves and the world. I hope you agree, epistemic insight is a real game changer in schools in that regard. Because now we are encouraging children to make connections and look for bigger explanations by drawing together the disciplines that they study. And I'm going to finish by giving you an example of how it might work, because here is a tool that we are using now in schools, and we call this a discipline wheel. We can put a question in the middle, and then we can explore that question through the disciplines that you can see. We can increase student agency. We can encourage students to choose 3 or 4 disciplines that they want to use to explore that big question. So let's take the question, why does the Earth exist? Well, rather wonderfully, we can see that although we are still a small blue dot of a planet, there are so many reasons to say we are significant, complicated, valuable, surprising, despite our unimaginably small physical size.
Yay! What an awesome talk there from Berry, kicking off the show. She is so captivating to watch, isn't she? And I just love this cross-disciplinary idea. And Berry is on a mission to change education. So if you are an educational professional or anyone from the press that can help get that message of epistemic insight out into the world, I know she is doing so many things, so many resources available. She's going to be telling us a little bit more about that later on when we do the Q&A. On the subject of Q&As, if you have any questions, now is your chance to get them in. Start with the word Berry, all capitals, and then your questions in the comments, and we will do our best to get to as many as possible during today's Q&A. That will be coming up after our next speaker. Speaking of our next speaker, I think it's about time we moved on to him. He is a local guy from our very own Mundella Primary School. So a big shout out. I'm sure there are many pupils and colleagues from Mundella on the stream. So you guys are so lucky to have this amazing guy, because he is so passionate about education and maths in particular, and he has already brought about transformative results in his school, and I know he's doing bigger things and growing it out into Kent. It has been his dream to do a TEDx talk, so we are so proud to have been able to give him that opportunity, and he has certainly not disappointed. So with his talk, what if I told you maths is about play? I give you Tommy Blanche.
Do you like football? Do you like maths? Do you like one but not the other? There's a chance you could. And if that's the case, I'd wager that you perhaps like football and not maths. Why is that? I wonder if it's got something to do with childhood. While we think about that, I'm going to pose you a question. And that question is, what is maths? What if I told you that maths and football are actually really similar? After all, with a football, you can perform multiple skills with it. Now, maths should be similar. But it's not, is it? I wonder why that is. I think a lot of that has to do with education and how we're educated around maths. If you think about our conceptual understandings of maths, a lot of them are based on fluency. And you may think about a page full of questions. 45 divided by 3, 15 times 3, 45 divided by 15, etc., etc. And you might be okay with that. You might be absolutely fine. But what if you weren't? What do you think the impact would be? It's possible that the impact would be a complete lack of confidence in yourself and maths, and crucially, yourself doing the subject of maths. I'm a teacher. I work at a fantastic school called Mundella Primary School in a town called Folkestone in the southeast corner of England. In all my conversations with my fantastic pupils, one of the most common things they tell me is that they are, quote unquote, no good at maths. Now, what is really interesting about that is that when I speak to the same parents of those pupils, a lot of the time, those parents of those pupils who don't believe in themselves at maths will have the same beliefs about themselves in the subject. Now, what do I do with this? Well, that's why I work hard to change perceptions of a subject which it's almost fashionable to say we are no good at maths, and we change the dynamic away from fluency, lots of different questions, to being able to play with numbers. You see, it's my conception that everybody can do maths. After all, most people have got 5 fingers on each hand, or 5 toes on each feet. Things we can calculate with, in educational terms, what we call manipulatives. But not everybody has the confidence to do maths, to play with the numbers without fear, to use them to reason with and to problem solve with. And that's what I do, I hope. I give people confidence to do just that. Take this puzzle. It's one big rectangle with 45, 15 and 3 across the top. Segments in the middle with nothing there, and the same numbers down the sides and across the bottom, but in a slightly different order, and one massive gap in the middle. What if I told you that me and my class spent a whole lesson on this one problem with no other questions attached. What did we do with it? What could we do with it? Well, if you were to teach some children that particular puzzle, that might be a question you would ask them. What can they find out about this particular puzzle? What kind of calculations could they do? What kind of things could they do with it? Interestingly, what was brilliant about that lesson was there were so many different answers of what could go in the gaps and how the numbers could connect. And after we found those, we began to play with the numbers a little bit. We times them by 10, by 20, by 30, and saw how that changed the dynamics of the numbers. And so many different children had so many different possibly correct ideas about what could go in the middle. What's more, they developed their thinking and their reasoning through lots and lots of writing, expressing themselves mathematically and developing the confidence to do so. That lesson was not merely divided into what was right and what was wrong. It was divided into lots of different interpretations of mathematics. In preparation for this talk, I showed the same puzzle to my beautiful wife, Sarah. Unlike the children I'd taught in that lesson, her response was, "But I don't know what the question is." A lot of the time, as adults, when a difficult situation comes along, we worry about children's resilience, how they respond to certain tests. But a lot of the time, in my experience, children will be more resilient than adults. As the late, great Ken Robinson once stated, the great thing about children is that kids will take a chance. How often, if you're working with a child or another person on a mathematical situation, have you asked them, what is it about this that they are struggling with? Have you ever considered the psychological impact of those words? You see, for me, a better question would be, what is it about this situation in terms of the numbers that you understand, that you recognise? Just like football, a lot of maths is about confidence. Confidence breeds confidence. Confidence in maths is the ability and the belief to take number, to play with it, and not be worried if you're wrong. I took my own thoughts on confidence within maths to a different level within my class. I'd seen how a lot of math lessons were structured, and I was inspired by a concept: education as a box set. What do you think that means? Well, I was inspired by a further quote, which read, "Education should be more like Game of Thrones and less like The Simpsons." What did that mean? Well, I was pretty sure it didn't mean lots of dragons and nudity. What it meant was lots of stories that interlinked and created a greater narrative. So I transplanted that idea into my own teaching of maths. And we had stories that lended greater meaning to the different calculations we did. In one term, I based an entire term's work around a fictional country called Lizardland and of corruption within certain numbers that were being played with by certain officials. From that, children learnt about place value. In another term, I created my own country, the glorious country of Blanche Bardos and their warring neighbour Easy Cheesy. For that term, we learnt through that about fractions. I also created a planet called Ponk and a fantastic Jurassic Ponk dinosaur park that existed within the planet. Through that, my children learnt about decimals. And in amongst all of this, we had different characters as well that kept appearing. We had Punchy, the singing hole punch, who taught children about proportion. Ratio, the blunder horse, who taught my children, or my class rather, about ratio. And of course, we had investigative reporter Tony Stat, who taught the class about statistics through his consumer affairs program, That's Stat. One lesson's plot led to another lesson's plot. But I thought, how can I embed this strategy further? Well, by the end of the year, I linked all of the stories together to create one fantastic ending where everything was linked. And what was the upshot? What was the statistical result of this? Well, in year 6, where I was teaching at the time, our results went from 19% passing the year 6 SAT tests to 65% passing on the year of implementation of this playful strategy. A massive step forward, not perfect, but a genuine sign of how this strategy had worked. And what's more important? The children enjoyed themselves. It made it memorable and fun for them. How do we know? Because they told us so themselves. And all of this revolves around play. Because just like football, maths is play. Or it should be, as long as we have the confidence to make it so.
Awesome stuff. Don't you just wish Tommy was your teacher when you were at school? That bit about Game of Thrones as well. When we saw that, when he pitched that idea to us, we were just absolutely sold. So a massive well done to Tommy. And the illustrations on there are just absolutely beautiful, aren't they? So those were all produced by Eastcliff Creatives, who I'm going to be telling you a bit more about later on. Okay, this is your final chance to get your questions in for Tommy. Tommy, followed by your question in the comments. If you are on the Zoom, we'll be going to those first. Also put them in the Facebook though, because we will do our best to get to as many as we can. Okay, while you're doing that, I'm going to give you a few minutes, and in the meantime, I'm going to tell you a bit about some of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on, in particular our sponsors, because this is an independently organised event. We do it all as volunteers on a non-for-profit basis, which means to make it happen, we need the support of local businesses and local organisations. You saw our media sponsors. I'm going to tell you more about those later. They're at the beginning of each of the videos. But we also have our event day sponsors, the first of which is the Workshop Folkestone. They are our hosts for this wonderful virtual studio. We also have tons of stuff behind the scenes. We have a little green room. They've got us totally kitted out with snacks, so we are well looked after. So thank you to the Workshop Folkestone. And our second sponsor, our second event day sponsor, is Earlscliffe Sixth Form College. And what's been really exciting about working with them is that it's more than just sponsorship. They totally share our values around getting ideas out and training and helping people, and young people in particular, express their ideas. So I am pleased to welcome now to our virtual stage Emma Clayton, who is the speaker lead, who's going to tell us a little bit more about our partnership. Hello, Emma.
Hello.
Hello. So it's been really exciting working with Earlscliffe, but can you tell us a little bit more about what you guys as a speaker team have been doing with us, and why it's so exciting?
Yeah, sure. Like, we're delighted that they're back for a second year first, so big shout out to Earlscliffe and the students there. Like you said, we're aligned in terms of our values, so that's great, and it makes it really easy to partner with them so that the students can get the most out of it. One thing we're super proud of at TEDx Folkestone is our speaker development programme.
Definitely.
So we don't go out and source our speakers. We actually put them through quite a rigorous application process, as you know. And I guess that once they're selected after an interview process, then their journey starts, because they then go through quite an intense program where we help them and support them to not just hone this big idea that they've got down into a 3 or 10 minute talk that you're going to see today, but actually help them with their delivery and their communications and their confidence.
Yeah.
So we've obviously learnt so much from taking our speakers through that process that we're really happy and excited to sort of take from that the lessons learned into a mini speaking project, if you like, that we're going to take to the students, to the school, and work with them for a day-long workshop where they're going to bring their ideas, and we're going to help them do exactly like we have done with the speakers. So we've got some little how-to snippet videos that they're going to get in between now and when we go there for the day. There's a small group, myself included, led by Sarah Thurston, who is our speaker coach. And we're going to have a great day with them and give them some coaching and some feedback and some support. So really super pumped to do that.
Absolutely. It's really nice to be able to, I guess, support the younger generation coming through, and maybe there may be some ideas in there for the future.
Absolutely.
The future TEDx Folkestone.
Yeah.
Very exciting stuff. Emma, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will let you go because we will now be going on to the speaker Q&A. I'm going to reach out for the magic arm that is going to appear, thank you, and hand me my questions. And I'm going to welcome to our virtual stage Berry Billingsley and Tommy Blanche. Guys, come on, come join me. I'm going to join me. We're all going to hit our spots. Thank you so much for being here. It's lovely to see you both. So, first question, how are you both feeling? You both delivered a TEDx talk now.
It is just the most thrilling thing to do, the whole experience. I mean, I'm just hearing you saying that you're taking a similar experience out into schools. And all I can say is, wow, they will be so pleased to participate.
Awesome.
Because the journey, as you say, the whole journey from going from something in my head that I've never been able to explain in less than an hour to, wow, we've got to get this into 10 minutes. And as you know, that has been a journey, and I've loved every moment of it. So thank you.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. And yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? But also what makes TEDx Talks so good is that short, concise, and that's kind of what people love, isn't it? We can get so much more knowledge in. And Tommy, what about you? Can I ask you to come around a little bit so I can see you? Thank you. How do you feel having a TED Talk out there?
I'm really proud, and I'm really grateful that I've had the opportunity to share my thoughts and feelings on a topic which is very passionate to me and means a lot. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really lovely seeing kind of your progress, and you've said all along how much kind of it means to you and your goal of doing a TED Talk. So
yeah,
we're really pleased
standing in front of a TED sign is it's like meeting a celebrity. So it's brilliant.
Absolutely, it's a big old sign, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it.
Good, and I guess while we're on the subject of education, it's a good time to say that was actually built by East Kent College. So the students on the construction course made our epic sign for us.
Pretty good.
Yeah, so it's all about so many educational collaborations. So it's really nice. Right, I have some questions for Berry. I also have the magic hand that is going to appear for me for some questions for Tommy. Thank you very much. As you can see, we are a live event. So Berry, I'm going to come to you first. Excuse me. Put that on. So we've got a question that comes in. It says, I heard on the radio a few days ago that Edward de Bono has died. How relevant are his ideas for developing the epistemic thinking of children?
Oh, well, there we go. What a wonderful question to start with. Thank you. Yes, well, an inspiration, isn't it? So for those that don't know, this is the idea of sort of thinking hats. And we say to the children, similarly, we sort of pinch the idea and then we change it a little bit. We say, think like a scientist, and then think like a historian. And so we do thinking hats as well. But we tell the children to try thinking in a discipline, or as a scientist, as a historian, a geographer.
Okay, nice. So it's brought in some of those kind of the benefits, and I guess all the best bits kind of in one.
And one of the brilliant things about being in research, which I am now, is that you can draw on all of these other wonderful people's ideas and pinch a bit of them, take the bit that you like and sort of reinvent it. So
absolutely,
yes.
Absolutely. I think all the best ideas are kind of recycle and therefore evolve along the way, don't they? So brilliant. Right, Tommy, I've got a question for you here. Your results speak for themselves, like a very impressive impressive turnaround.
Thank you.
You're only just on the start, aren't you? So I'm sure more to come. Great work, this person says. Is it showing those kind of results that helps you to influence those enabling, disabling your imaginative approach to teaching?
I think the results are really good, and I think within my fantastic school, big shout out to the Mandela Massive.
Absolutely.
I think the results are really important because we and I hate the phrase journey as I keep saying today, but we've been on a journey to where we are now. But I think it's courage of conviction as well, and the results are fantastic, and I love them. But seeing the smiles on the kids' faces, them joining in with songs, them talking about maths in a really enthusiastic way matters a million times more to me. And I can show the books, and I can show the kids, and I can show their reactions, and that's the thing I would show more. So the results are important, but the kids understanding and feeling confident about maths is the most important thing.
Awesome. That's really exciting. That's great stuff. Okay, so I guess on that subject of results, I'm going to ask you both kind of a very similar question in terms of what's next, what do you want to do, and what are the opportunities and potential hurdles to getting both of your ideas out into the world a little bit further. If I come to Berry first, and then same question to Tommy.
Oh, it absolutely starts here, doesn't it? I mean, and in 10 minutes to have that chance to say, look at all the questions that you don't get to ask and explore in the classroom, and to come up with some examples. So from here, well, we have schools who are working with us, and incidentally we've just started a new project. So any schools that would like to get involved now, we've got free bags for all the children, and as you can see, they say investigating big questions. And in investigating big questions, you ask a science question, and then you think of all the big questions that you could ask on the basis of what you found out in science.
Awesome.
So where it goes from here is more of this, more getting the word out to schools, more supporting schools with doing this. And then they always say, don't they, you know, the dream is to change the curriculum. So after we've shown it working so beautifully, to get the curriculum to reflect a little bit more on where some of these big questions are and why children need to be looking at them.
Yeah, I guess this is just the start, as you said, isn't it? So it's moving on. So anyone out there, be they a teacher or an educational professional, or I guess media as well, to just generally help spread the message further and wider.
It's the best time to be doing it now. Now is the best time, because so much has changed. I mean, schools have looked completely different, haven't they, for a year?
Absolutely.
So this is the time when we're all saying build it back better. So how are we going to make education better? It's good, but you know,
there's
it
always
could be
room for
better.
improvement. Definitely. Okay, Tommy, what about you? What's next?
Well, I think I'm always quite passionate about opportunities to develop maths in education, but I think what I want to be is someone who inspires others to think, actually, I may not feel confident about maths, but if I look at it in a different way, I can take maths forwards. Or if I'm an educator who, like I was a few years ago, looks at maths like, oh, I don't quite know where to go with this. Actually, there's a way you can move forward, keep working, it will work for you. And if you're a child sitting in a class on a daily basis feeling like, I don't get this, I'm never going to get this, you will. Mm-hmm. It's just your interpretation of maths just needs a bit of pushing and helping and supporting, and is developing mathematics in a way which is more accessible for everyone and gives people confidence. And if that's what's happened as a result of this talk, then it's achieved what I really wanted it to. So.
Brilliant, good stuff. Okay, you can tell we really are live because I'm having some questions coming in to me right now. We are feeding your questions in as they come through. Okay, so let me have a look here. We've got one for Tommy because it's at the top, so I'm going to ask you that one first. I'm curious, what makes you hate the word journey? From Luna.
I quite like the 1980s pop band, so it's not that. I don't know. I think I lived, you know, somebody said something and they always said they hate the word journey in this context, so maybe it's just through that. I don't know exactly, because the only way I can describe what I've been on and the other speakers have been on is a journey, and maybe this is a learning thing where actually journey it's not that bad, you know what I mean? And it is a journey. It is a journey of mental development and where we are today. It's a euphoric feeling, I think, for everyone.
Perhaps we don't like journey because journey journey might sound like we've got to the end of it now. We don't want to be at the end.
An ongoing journey.
As long as we're really sure that this is only
Okay.
kind of the beginning of the journey, then I think we're all happy.
We don't want
it to finish.
I'll go ongoing journey. I'll set up for ongoing journey.
Yes, we're on the journey.
And I guess, because it leads quite nicely through, we have a question from Peter who asks, would you say that your success is rooted in numbers or in language?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I would say it's rooted in epistemic insights. Because I think it's not. See, I mean, I myself, as I've said, when I was a little boy, I'd look in each maths class thinking, oh gosh, what am I going to do with these numbers? My skills were always in English and storytelling, and there are children who are the same. There are children in every classroom, always the same. So I would say that it's a combination. I think it's seeing a lot of teachers, a lot of people are scared of maths because it's number, so they feel like it's concrete, it has to be correct. But actually you see numbers in everything. So there's numbers in stories, and you can put it into any context, whether it's a crazy racehorse or a purple planet or whatever other things I have I'm about to say come up with, but if my class are listening, then they are definitely real. So yeah.
And we both have, we both of us said, one of the challenges at the moment is that the children don't get to think of the questions that they're going to ask in the classroom. The questions are already waiting for you when you get into the classroom.
Yeah.
So before a maths lesson, this is going to be maths. And when you get into the maths lesson, there are the maths questions waiting for you. Yeah. So it's a sort of a bit of a giveaway that we're going to be doing maths. Whereas if we found our maths or we found our science, and it was helping us to think about something we wanted to think about at the time, then you have more opportunity to do that in primary,
and I think
less opportunity as we do it in secondary.
I think a lot of time the standard maths idea is to present children with, say, 10 questions you thought of. If you present them with an answer, then the chance of you can think of 10 questions, they can all think of 10 questions. So you've got a class of 30, this is a bit of mathematics for you, you've got 300 inquiries in your classroom in one day. And that's more personal to them, and that means they've had ownership of it.
So. Something I always found frustrating when I was at school was, as I say, I like science. And I like science because of all the mind-boggling things you think when you're thinking about science. Not necessarily the bit where you're sort of sitting there with the equation trying to work out the equation. But in the classroom, as long as you got the equation right, you now had everything you needed for the exam. So that was it. It was done. I wanted to do the rest of the talking, but no, that wasn't on the curriculum. So you didn't have a chance to talk about that. Yeah. But here is a thought for you. So we are all empty space with just a few particles of matter. So we feel so solid, don't we? It's so real. It's so like a person. And yet, actually, our physics is telling us that you're almost entirely empty space. And not only that, but the floor is almost entirely empty space as well. So I'm entirely empty space, the floor is almost entirely empty space, and yet for some reason I can stand on the floor and feel like a solid person. Yeah. So, there's the mind-boggling bit. But how do you write in a physics exam? Yes, it's mind-boggling.
It's curiosity.
That's not the answer that anybody ever asks you to give, and yet that's the question that you might want to ask.
More questions, basically. Not just for these guys, but in life in general, I think, isn't it? Is the questions are the fun bit. And that's where life happens, isn't it? We go out into adult life, and often we have to set the question and then come up with the answer. So I think, you're absolutely both totally spot on.
Thinking about how you could investigate the question, if at all. Yeah, it's another good one.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to go on to another question, Barry. Do you know of any plans to have project-based teaching that would require all disciplines to work together using epistemic insight to explore these deeper questions?
Well, that's a fantastic question as well. Thank you for whoever.
I'm not sure who that was, but thank you.
It's the big thing, isn't it? So we noticed during lockdown that when children were at home, for some of them, they were still on timetables. So they were literally sort of watching one Zoom call with the maths teacher, and then that would shut down and they'd be plunged straight into the geography and then straight into the music. So even in that sort of situation in which we were no longer in school, some schools were still finding that they were operating like classrooms where you just go from one to another. So the challenge has always been timetabling. So I've always said, wouldn't it be brilliant if you could have 2 teachers in the classroom together, or 3 or 4, And you could ask them all the same question and see what it looks like through those different disciplines. But of course, if you've now got 4 teachers in one classroom, then your children down there, down the corridor, well, they've essentially got no teacher. So, that's not going to work. So the timetable is the thing that kind of holds us into the shape we're in. And the only things you can do are things like, an off-curricular, an off-timetable day. And I suggest that every school should have a big questions day, at least one a term, preferably 2 a term, or even 1 a week. And on a big questions day, you do get to see questions in the round and start to think about the different ways that you could explore them. Yeah. And then we can have some of the children being scientists and thinking scientifically, and some of them being historians, and just looking at some of these questions all round. And I've always said, you get into life, you're not going to have somebody come along and say, this is a science question, this is a maths question. Yeah. The questions are questions, aren't they? Yeah. We need to work out how to answer them.
Yeah, based on the project, absolutely. And how many schools are you working with at the moment? Are there any schools that are doing what you're talking about and kind of have been able to, at least in part, do away with the timetable?
Oh, well, we don't want to do away with the timetable. We just want to improve it. Okay. But yes, we've got 30 schools at the moment. And as I say, I'm excited because the equipment has just come in. So those schools will have a bag for every child, and inside the bag you've got the pipettes and all the bits and pieces to do all of the investigations. That was just in case we went into another lockdown, so that it was no good sending the equipment into the classroom and then all the children go home. So this is so that you can do water on a penny. So this is how many drops of water can you get on a penny, and then we ask big questions about rain and why it rains and why rain drops around and all these sorts of things. So we've got 30 schools at the moment, and definitely room for more.
Okay, brilliant. So I'll ask you both at the end kind of where people can go to get more information. And one final question, Tommy, where do you come up with your ideas from for your wonderful stories? Because we heard a taster of them, but where do they come from?
I don't know. It does slightly worry me. They're things. A lot of the time, they're things. I think Steven Spielberg once said he makes films that he would have enjoyed as a child. So I go for things that I would have enjoyed, and I go for pop culture references. And so we've done stuff on Pathé News, we've done stuff on like detective stories and so on and so forth. It's anything that might be engaging and different and look at things in a different way. We've done rap song, we've done like adding fractions to Boom Shake 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 the Room and stuff, and it's just fun. It's stuff that makes it fun, that makes them want to come back and learn more. Totally. So it's anything that I think is quite funny. As I said, I've said before, the ratio idea, seeing the cartoon come to life was so strange because it was literally me and my TA. We found a horse's head and I thought I'll just put it on, and I'm a horse that sorts sugar cubes, so it's me wandering around the classroom going hey, with like a horse's head on. So it's just anything that makes me laugh, and I just feel like if it makes me laugh, it makes me interested, it's going to make the children interested, or it's going to make the majority interested. So
brilliant. I love that story of you running around the classroom with a horse's head on. Bonkers, but I imagine the kids would get absolutely wild, and they will definitely not forget that. Yeah. Not forget that in a moment. I remember having a teacher doing kind of star jumps to try and teach us Latin verbs or something, and I still remember it. So, that wasn't anywhere near a ratio horse running around, so that's amazing stuff. Final question for you both then. Where can people go to find out more information if they have been inspired by your talk, if they want to sign up as a school, if they want to get advice, like where should they go? I'll come to you, Barry, first.
So we have a website, and that's epistemicinsight.com. So then you do have to try and get on top of the name, don't you? But at least if you Google it, it's Googleable. You can find it. So epistemicinsight.com.
Brilliant. And Tommy?
Just at the minute, my base would be the Mandela Primary School. There are two. There's one in Sheffield and there's one in Folkestone. I haven't come all the way from Sheffield, so the Mandela website page, and I have got a page on there called Madmatics, but I do need to add bits and bobs to it, and you can see some of the more. I think there's a reference saying notes from our clients or something like that, with loads of my children's comments from a few years ago about how much they enjoyed it, and I want to upload more resources and so on and so forth to help others develop their ideas.
Yeah,
I probably find our name names as well, because these days Google is amazing, isn't it?
It is,
name
yeah. Especially if you put TEDx Folkestone and then your names, you'll
Yes.
find it. Berry Billingsley, Tommy Blanche, those are the names. You want to be Googling, watch your videos and then find out more, because TEDx is all about ideas and then turning them into action. So we want these ideas to, like we said, it's an ongoing journey, so they're going to get bigger and better, we hope.
And I mean,
by the, I think TEDx Folkestone is particularly special. So
Aw.
of all the TEDx's to work with, and I don't know what the other independent groups are like, but yeah, as an experience, it's just been astonishing. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's a good chance to say thank you.
Thank you.
and I'm someone who wanted to do this for a while, and I know there's people probably out there now who have their own ideas and they think maybe this is worth sharing. And I'd say absolutely, if you feel that there's a justification in it in terms of what you've done with your life and you've got these ideas, sign up for the next one, come and share your ideas, and you'll feel so rewarded to have got your own ideas out there into public, because every single talk today is mind-blowing, funny, touching, supportive, and there's so much resonance in them, and they're ideas that are worth sharing. So.
We are going to change the world, aren't we?
You are, totally. I mean, I think they've done a great job of selling the rest of the event. So I'll say thank you very much. This is the end of the education session. Thank you very much to you both.
Thank you.
We will now be going on to our session 2, which is community. The screen will now tell you we are going on to our second session, which is community. It has undoubtedly been a hard year, but ultimately through challenge comes the opportunity to grow, to learn and evolve. And as our title, A New Horizon, for today's event shows, it is really about looking to the new horizon and seeing where it's going to take us. We have 3 incredible speakers that are going to challenge you, but also provide new insight and new opportunities for how we can step into that new horizon. So I'm very pleased to be going on to this second session and introducing our first speaker for this second session. She is the founder and CEO of a charity that is devoted to squashing the stigma surrounding mental health. The level of vulnerability and strength and courage that this lady has shown throughout the process is so inspiring and so moving. However, I do have to say we have put a trigger warning on this talk because there are some very moving topics that Sarah will discuss around the topic of alcoholism. So without further ado, I give you, with her talk, Alcoholism, the Deadly Truth About Its Stigma, I give you Sarah Drage.
My dad was the kindest, most caring man I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. He was a very sensitive man who would tear up easily. I would always catch him secretly wiping away a tear whenever he got emotional. He was a funny Yorkshireman with the quirkiest sense of humour. And above all of this, I knew more than anything that the love he had for his family was unmeasurable. Now, you're probably wondering, why am I telling you this? Why do we need to know your dad's personality for your TEDx talk? But it's so important that I tell you. To make my point the best I can, then you need to have a clear insight into the man I called my dad, and a man people called Steve. Because quite often, when I tell people that he was an alcoholic, they have a very preconceived and distorted vision of how he may have come across. Now, before I go any further, I would like to ask you a question. And I want you to really think about this and be absolutely unapologetically honest with yourself. Have you ever stereotyped an alcoholic? And by stereotype, I mean, have you ever thought to yourself or allowed that alcoholics are weak, overindulgent, and a burden to the health system? Because if you find yourself nodding to those statements, then I would like to say this to you. Perhaps alcoholism didn't kill my dad. And maybe you did. Maybe I did. Now go with me on this, because I'm aware of how bold that statement was. But the stigma and lack of awareness around a very serious disease ultimately caused my dad's death. He was afraid to seek early intervention and support because, in his own words, he was ashamed. Now, there are 3 facts associated with alcohol and alcohol addiction that I must share with you. And I've broken them down into 3 categories: danger, dependence, and disease. Professor David Nutt, a world-renowned professor of neuropsychopharmacology, categorises alcohol as the most dangerous drug in the UK, beating crack and heroin, because of the harm it causes the user, but the repercussions it also has on society. Alcohol is one of a few substances where withdrawal alone can directly kill you. So to put it bluntly, if you are physically dependent on alcohol and abruptly stop drinking, then you're at a significant risk of death. Alcohol addiction is widely recognised within the medical industry as a disease, a chronic relapsing brain disorder characterised by an impaired ability to stop or control alcohol use. Now, I'm not talking to you today from an academic perspective. I'm not an expert within this area, but I'm coming from a lived experience point of view. I have witnessed the stigma portrayed towards an alcoholic. I've seen it, I've felt it, I've heard it, and I've been part of it. But I was wrong. We were all wrong, and I know that now. So I stand here today to share with you what I have learnt about alcohol addiction, and hope that in doing so, we can contribute towards shifting society's mindset so that we can empower alcoholics to recovery, rather than shaming them into silence and anonymity. My dad told me that he drank to forget. He drank to numb the overwhelming anxiety, depression, and PTSD. He drank because his generation and many other generations taught him that it was a weakness to discuss your mental health. So he drowned out the noise with the euphoric effects of alcohol instead. I hated him at times. I was angry. I was bitter. And I even went as far as thinking that he was a weak and selfish man who had no self-control. Growing up, my dad's addiction was to be unspoken of. Don't tell anyone. Don't let anyone know he drinks heavily. We didn't even admit it to ourselves. Looking back, we were feeding the stigma. By staying quiet and not being his advocate, we allowed him to get sucked into the shame and humiliation that society currently projects towards alcoholics. On the 31st of August, 2017, he died as a result of excessive drinking. Shame and humiliation prevented my dad from accessing support. Stigma was partly to blame for his death. Now, society often shifts culpability and blames the alcoholic for their lack of willpower, and this was evident in my dad's case. Following his death, I was reminded that he did it to himself. He only had himself to blame, and it was self-inflicted. Now, if we're being technical, then yes, perhaps it was self-inflicted, but does that same logic not apply to other self-inflicted illnesses? Because 90% of lung cancers are caused by smoking. A massive contributing factor to developing type 2 diabetes is diet and inactiveness. Some of the most common illnesses brought on by our lifestyle choices are high cholesterol and high blood pressure. If you suffered from one of those illnesses, would you feel ashamed to seek medical treatment? Alcohol is a socially accepted, easily accessible and legal substance, and is part of most people's diets. Yet we continue to shame those who become addicted to its euphoric side effects as overindulgent and weak. We shame them into remaining silent and anonymous to protect their reputation. Professor David Nutt very powerfully states, "It's not your fault you want to drink. Alcohol is a very powerful and addictive drug that's not only legal, but enmeshed in our everyday lives. You see, my dad didn't abuse alcohol. Alcohol abused him. And he was powerless to do anything about it without clinical professional help. It's not as simple as having willpower to just come off it. Once you become physically dependent on alcohol, it has gotten a hold of you. And in order to survive, you have no choice but to carry on drinking until you access clinical support. Which means, for the majority of alcoholics, accessing that support is harder than coping with the disease itself. Let me put that into perspective for you. 2 weeks before my dad died, I pleaded with him to get help, but he wouldn't. He told me that it was self-inflicted, that it was a weakness, and that he didn't want to waste his doctor's time. Sadly, it would seem that he is not alone in that thought process. It is estimated that there are 1.6 million people in the UK physically dependent on alcohol, and less than a quarter of them are seeking support. Many alcoholics claim that stigma and shame prevent them from recovering. Now, I am by no means suggesting that society is responsible for the alcoholism crisis upon us. I am perfectly aware that we can only help so much, and that it is the sole responsibility of an alcoholic to commit to recovery. But we can help in other ways. For starters, we can liberate them from the stigma by showing genuine and sincere support. We can empower them to seek treatment and give them the encouragement to recover openly and freely, without judgment or stereotype. The more shame we place upon an alcoholic will only feed their disease, and the vicious cycle will continue. If we are to move forward positively, then we need to change the way we view alcoholism. So I come to you today as a daughter of an alcoholic who had a name. He was called Steve. And he had a family who loved him unconditionally. But he was failed significantly by society's cruel stereotype against him. If you take anything away from my talk today, I hope that it's empathy, compassion, and an understanding that alcoholics are not self-indulgent and weak, but they are fighting a daily battle to survive a deadly and often terminal disease. Perhaps if collectively we can show more encouragement and understanding, then those 1.6 million dependent drinkers in the UK may feel empowered to stay on track to a wonderful life of sobriety.
Such a powerful talk there, and the courage that Sarah has shown has been absolutely immeasurable. Well done, Sarah. And if you have been affected by any of the issues that Sarah discussed in her talk, then we have left some comments in the chat for links to further support and advice, and we will also put some on our main Facebook page. So yes, please do reach out if you need any support following that talk. Then there are links, there are details, or reach out and we can send you them directly, the links for further support. If you have any questions for Sarah following her talk, then please do add them to the comments. We will do our best to collate them and ask her during the live Q&A, which will be coming up later on after our next two speakers. Okay, we shall move on now to our second speaker for the community session. He is a very talented guy that, as well as being a professional musician who has worked with the likes of Lady Gaga, the Chili Peppers and Bob Dylan, is also a qualified systemic practitioner who has worked with governments and social organisations to bring about huge change at a systemic level. So with his talk, how letting go of inherited trauma can free us from the past. I give you Richard Bundy.
The musician Joni Mitchell wrote, "We are stardust, billion-year-old carbon. We are golden, caught in the devil's bargain." I see patterns that repeat, connect, and often entangle us with our families, organizations, and cultures across distance and throughout time. We have inherited a lot from those who came before us. We're not born a blank canvas. Scientists at Emory University conducted an experiment. They gave male mice a mild electric shock coordinated with the scent of cherry blossom. They bred those mice, and even after 2 generations, the descendants reacted as if they had been shocked when they smelt the same cherry blossom scent. An inherited survival mechanism triggered by potential danger, initiating the state of fight, flight, or freeze. This largely unrecognized condition steers humanity. At a recent workshop, a lady called Jill shared her life of incompletions. She never saw anything through. Relationships, jobs, university, she couldn't see the point. But we learned that her grandmother's first child became sick. Despite her efforts to save the child died. What was the point? This traumatic event was kept secret from Jill's mother, who was the next child, later manifesting in Jill as a sense of powerlessness and helplessness. By identifying the source of Jill's issue, we could create clarity and focus on new perspectives. Mark Wallin, a leader in the field of inherited family trauma, says, "Remaining silent about family pain is rarely an effective strategy for healing it. The suffering will express in the fears and symptoms of a later generation because inherited experiences connect us to our systems long before we are born and long after we die." I was driving through my local town of Dover. At its heart, it struggles socially. It has been on the front line for over 2 millennia, and as England is a country built on conquest, Dover has seen invasions from the Romans, the Jutes, the Saxons, the Angles, the Normans, the French, the Germans. The traumas of conflict are left with the survivors and their descendants for generations and often repeated. And on this day, it was Brexit's battleground. It was a line of riot police facing 1,000 anti-immigration protesters. There's yet another scene in Dover's history. Let's dive into this as a systemic practitioner. Visualize, if you will, the anti-immigration protesters. See one of the men. Observe his emotion. Picture his face and hear the sound of his voice. Now, you weren't there, but you've just created what you think he was like. Our minds access memory, imagination, and inherited experience to prejudge and prepare us for the unknown. But with this resource, it's often difficult to remain on neutral ground. Now let's imagine something that wasn't in our picture. The protester with his parents standing behind him. His father, the son of a soldier killed in Dunkirk, whose body was brought to the shores of Dover. At times, this man belongs to the system of protesters, but at other times, he belongs to the group of grieving war survivors, like myself. By adopting a systemic lens gives opportunity to see people and not just the groups into which we place them. It can break the cycle of perpetuating conflict, revealing avenues where once there were none. This is how I choose to see people. My compassion grows, I remain open to connection, and that's where healing begins. And it reminds me, when I'm at my most vulnerable, how my own prejudgment, prejudice is fed by my fears. I recently worked with a lady called Sonia, whose ancestors were thrown off a ship, still in chains. The few that reached land began the population of the island. Now, Sonia was a descendant of a cold-blooded act, and she, among others, understandably, inherited the trauma in the form of rage against a vicious past. With this insight, time, and a little care, we were able to free Sonia in the present. Shifts in perspective create the potential for change. My grandfather, Benjamin, he was drafted in World War II from the then British colony of Guyana, where I was born. His grandparents were witness to slavery as children. Benjamin married his sweetheart, Rosalind, and together they had 4 children, one of whom, my mother, journeyed to England to become a nurse in the NHS. Shifts in perspective create potential for change. What do you remember of Benjamin? He was a father, a romantic, a soldier, a British citizen. In contrast, these 2 people also had 4 children, one of whom remained in Canada, one was lost in World War I on Vermi Ridge. Another was a pianist who squandered his money in Paris on wine, women, and song. What a disgrace. The family hid that secret for years. And then Walter, who was a captain and became an accountant. And perhaps these 2 people also had 4 children, one of whom, Ivy, married Walter. Walter and Ivy lived in Hampstead in London. Ivy owned a clothes shop on Regent Street. They had 2 sons. One became a doctor. It was my father. My path wasn't the medical profession. My passion was music. And could it be that over 20 years on the road, I've identified with this excluded great-uncle, musician in Paris? It's quite possible, and perhaps his creative expression continues in me. Because by ignoring, hiding, or suppressing issues in systems almost guarantees that they will be expressed in some form by someone at a later time or a later generation. Do you remember Jill's grandmother and the trauma of losing the child kept secret? What's the point? Manifesting generations later as a sense of powerlessness and helplessness. By observing the origin of Jill's issue, enabled Jill to give birth to new motivation. And Sonia, whose ancestors were thrown off a ship, still in chains, swam and reached the island. Sonia is now no longer the descendant of victims, but incredible survivors. These gentle shifts in perspective can unchain us from the past. And the people of the town on the front line, long after the guns have fallen silent, some of those descendants of the survivors are still fighting that battle. And the anti-immigration protester, his parents standing with him, now his grandfather in clear view. In the system of men and women, we are fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, the descendants of the fallen. And a little hope is born, perhaps. This is how I choose to see people. My compassion grows. I remain open to connection. That's where the healing begins. Because inherited traumas teach us that there are no winners. We simply survive. But unlike mice, we can thrive. We can wake up and smell the cherry blossom simply as cherry blossom. So we are stardust, billion-year-old carbon. We are golden, caught in the devil's bargain. With a little attention, we can read the patterns that steer our systems, regain the courage to free ourselves from the cycles of the past, determine who we become, and consciously shape our destiny.
What a beautiful talk. Richard just has that power to be so poetic yet so powerful in his message at the same time. He has done some amazing things locally already, and I'm sure will go on to do so many more. An amazing talk there from Richard Bundy. If you have any questions for Richard, now's the time. Chuck them in the comments, right? Richard, followed by your comment, and we will do our best to get to them. Thank you to everyone who has been putting comments and questions so far. We are seeing them all. They're coming through directly to us, so you may not see them yourselves, but we are seeing them coming through both on the Zoom and on the Facebook. So thank you so much for getting involved with TEDx Folkestone today. I hope you're enjoying the event so far. Okay, that was the first two speakers of our community session. Next, we'll be going on to our third community session before around 12 o'clock, we'll be going into our creativity session. So we have one final speaker for this session before we then move into the Q&A, where you'll get to ask all those questions to our speakers. So our third speaker for the session, well, he is a guy that is absolutely proves that no one and nothing should stop you from sharing your idea and sharing your message, not even a speech impediment. This guy, despite overtly stuttering since the age of 4, is now a speaker and mentor on Toastmasters circuit. He also runs a charity that helps people in the workplace who stutter. So a very inspiring guy doing absolutely amazing things. With his talk, The Invisible Challenges of Stuttering, I give you Ruben Pilar.
One 1% of the world's population experiences stuttering. 1%. But this talk is for everyone else, to help you better understand the challenges that we face. Everyone can see the physical struggle when someone is having a stuttering block, but the psychological battle is still wildly misunderstood. The ancient Greeks, for all their wisdom, attempted to cure stuttering by having people speak with rocks in their mouth. They would even cut off pieces of your tongue to alleviate any visible tension. Fortunately, for people like me, speech therapy and coaching has come a long way since then. In the next few minutes, I'm going to give you an insight into the mindset behind how it feels to have a stuttering block. Stuttering is like walking along an unreliable bridge. The bridge is your voice, and below is a river that you do not want to fall into. The deeper your insecurities and the lower your self-esteem, the deeper the river and the bigger the fall. As you walk along this bridge, step by step, word to word, you can feel the bridge creaking and tension rising. It's almost inevitable that you will fall into this river of shame, embarrassment, and previous negative experiences. You reach the first massive gap and freeze. Something is preventing you from making that next step, and the next word seems out of your reach. You take a deep breath and begin to jump, but hold back. You try again and again, and eventually you make that leap. You just about reach the other side, and you cling onto that sound for dear life to pull yourself up and over to complete that word. This process repeats itself several times a day. It can be mentally draining and very stressful. And as you get older, more difficult bridges await and big life decisions. You start avoiding. You avoid words, sounds, careers, relationships, and eventually life. Once I realized it was okay to jump into that river and face my insecurity, reveal my insecurity, my ability to express myself and be myself opened up. It's taken a long time, but I'm no longer afraid of stuttering openly in public. That was the key to my freedom. I took control of the narrative. And if you are facing an invisible struggle of your own, that could be the key to yours. If you happen to come across a person who stutters, or anyone experiencing a visible or invisible challenge, just give them time to walk along their bridge and appreciate that there is a river beneath that you cannot see or fully understand.
What an awesome talk there. An absolute masterclass in storytelling and the use of metaphor. The use of that bridge analogy is just absolutely incredible. And to do it all in 3 minutes, such an incredible talk there from Ruben. If you have any questions for Ruben, now is the time. You have a few minutes to get your questions in the comments. And as you saw earlier on, they will be delivered like magic to me for me to ask them during the speaker Q&A that we'll be doing in about 5 minutes or so. Get those questions in now. While you are doing that, that gives me a great opportunity to tell you a little bit more about some of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on, and in particular our partnerships. And as I'm sure you have seen from the amazing talks we've seen so far, we've been so lucky to be able to have this wonderful creative element that we added to our talks this year. Yes, there was the challenge of not being able to do it in person, but we took that as an opportunity to do something totally different, and I think the outcome that's been produced is absolutely wonderful, and we're going to hear a little bit more about it because we have two key organizations that have been involved in making those happen. The first is Prisma Broadcast. So these guys have been supporting us throughout the whole of TEDx Folkestone since its birth, and it's been so wonderful to work with them to bring these ideas to a different level. And I love how we've got this really cinematic look shot at the Folkestone Quarterhouse. So a massive thank you to Creative Folkestone as well for hosting us on those. And they shot and edited all those films into these wonderful pieces that we see here today. And the second part of that wonderful collaboration, that has been East Cliff Creatives. You guys may know of them, some of you may be from them yourselves. They're a group of local artists, designers, creatives, all sorts of stuff based right here in Folkestone. And they were the ones that did all the artwork and the animation on all of those talks. And I'm very excited to say that I am joined now by Angus Cameron from East Cliff Creatives. Angus, welcome to our little virtual stage we have here.
Hi.
Hello.
Good to be here, thank you.
Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit more about kind of the work that East Cliff Creatives did in producing these videos and why you were so excited about them?
So this, for us, was a great opportunity to add an extra creative element to the talks, and allowing that each talk was so different. The great thing was that we could have different creatives linked to each of those talks, so the end result for each one would be different. And I think it was a nice opportunity where we as a group have a very diverse group of creatives, that we could see that come through within the talks that people are seeing today.
Absolutely. There's so much hard work that's gone in behind the scenes, and you guys, your creative very much like led on the designs and the ideas, didn't they? Working with the speakers to kind of go, right, how do we bring this idea to life? And that gentle balance between not over kind of powering the talks, but also adding an extra new element.
Yeah, I think very much in the early conversations that we were having was, and I think we kept reinforcing this, was it's about the talk. So the creative is purely there to highlight and enhance certain aspects, but it should never distract. So it should be a synergy going on between the two, really.
Yeah, I think you guys did a great job of getting that balance and really bringing them to life. It's exciting to, well, I'm so excited to put them out into the world when they go out onto Big TED, out onto TED.com, that we'll be able to see what the reaction we get, and hopefully kind of really set the standard for what a new style TEDx talk can be.
Absolutely, and I think it's quite exciting that the TED Talks themselves can be elevated in this way to also involve more people in that process. And I think the types of talks, especially the selection of talks today, each one very different, very compelling, and the opportunity to be part of that process as well, to see how it evolves and develops and how the creative can help tell that story. I think it is very exciting. Definitely. And I hope that is something that will evolve as the process goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an interesting point, isn't it? There are those people who want to stand up and speak, but there are others that want to express their ideas, but through different mediums and different forms. And I think being able to do that creatively is a wonderful opportunity, like you said, to bring so many more people into the process and have something they can be absolutely so proud of. So, well, I want to say a massive thank you to you and to the whole Eastcliff Creatives team, because you guys have been doing loads of work behind the scenes, working very closely with Prisma Broadcast to make these wonderful talks a reality. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Fantastic to be part of it.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to let you go because it's now time to go to our speaker Q&A. We're going to be welcoming back our 3 speakers from the community session. I'm going to hopefully be handed some magic questions that have appeared, that have been put through. There we go, like magic. We've got it down to clockwork down here. So I'm going to welcome them in. We have Sarah Drage. We have, if I can find my spot, if you want to stick yourself there, Richard Bundy and Ruben Pillai. Hello, guys.
Hi, Leo.
Hello. Hi. So first question to all of you, how do you feel? I'm going to go around in the order we did the talks because that will make it easier. How are you feeling?
Liberated, I suppose. It's quite nice to have it out there. I've not seen any feedback yet, so I'm a little bit nervous, apprehensive and excited to see what people have to say. But yeah, I do feel very liberated and empowered. It's been a great experience, so Thank you very much.
I'm really pleased. Thank you. Richard, how are you feeling?
Good. I'm good. It was a long time coming, delayed by COVID this year, and yeah, I think all these talks are really essential to be out there in the world now. So, liberated.
Awesome. I like that. Liberated is a good word. And Ruben, how are you feeling?
I think it's amazing. Just the whole journey in the process, and I think the best way to explain it is back in the past at speaking events, I could be there in the crowd at the back somewhere, but then it's great to be speaking and like explaining like but the topic and the challenges, and yeah,
awesome.
It's very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You can all say now you are officially TEDx speakers at TEDx Folkestone. So thank you very much to everybody first off for choosing TEDx Folkestone. We've got a number of questions that have come in here. This is the first time I've seen them, so I'm going to go through. Right, so we have a question for Sarah from Guy, who says, sorry to hear about your father's illness and the sadness it has brought. You mentioned that your father found it difficult not to feel embarrassed despite your pleads. So what small practical steps do you think could help change the way people dealing with this addiction currently feel?
That's a really good question, and I'm really glad Guy asked that. I suppose it's not the first time somebody's asked me that, and people have come to me for advice before, and I always say to them to have that honest conversation with your loved one and tell them that it's not their fault. Explain to them that it's a disease, explain to them that you're there to support, and explain, like, the things that I mentioned in my talk, that it is absolutely no different to an addiction to smoking, to an addiction to sugar, eating the wrong foods. It is an addiction, and addiction is addiction. There shouldn't be that stigma or that stereotype attached to it for something that's so accessible and so in your face everywhere you go. I look back now, because I didn't know that when my dad was alive. There wasn't enough education, there wasn't enough awareness around that. It weren't until after he died that I realised, or I was told and educated, that it's a disease. He couldn't help it. He had no choice but to carry on drinking. It was a vicious cycle. So my advice would be to do your best to support. I'm not saying that that works for everyone, because sometimes, I mean, you are realistically going to get somebody that doesn't want that support, or they aren't ready for that support just yet. But it's important that we recognise that it isn't their fault, and that we can put those resources in place and encourage them to go and see their GP, because the GP will be the first port of call for anybody with a drinking problem. Absolutely. absolutely the first port of call.
Yeah, I guess absolutely it's that making them realise it's okay,
Yeah.
and therefore, and then being able to do something about it by first being accepting, acknowledging that it's something that can be done, and not feeling embarrassed.
The worst thing we can say to somebody, sorry to add to that, but the worst thing we can say to an alcoholic is just stop drinking. That's dangerous. The effects of withdrawal are life-threatening, and we should never make that assumption. And it should always be the GP who advises on what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that line, that the impact of withdrawal, I think was when hearing you rehearse that, and that's very powerful, something I was totally not aware of, and I think that's a very important line. I'm getting looks. I've got some questions coming to me now. We are live and interactive, as is proof. Okay, right, Richard. Oh wow, we've got loads of questions for you. Okay. I agree with Lee. Your talk was very interesting and put across in a very elegant and engaging way. Oh, that's a comment, not a question. There we go.
Thank you.
Let me look for a question. Okay. Okay. What is the systemic insight for the G7 leaders as they meet in Cornwall and debate our environmental challenges? There you go. That's an interesting question. So there. Any thoughts? That's all right.
That's
it's all right. We'll all watch Richard as we sort out the tech.
That's a very big question.
Yeah.
So, from my perspective as a systemic facilitator or practitioner, then I would potentially advise them to look at all aspects of the decisions that they're going to make: historical, future, cultural, environmental, and consider all of those aspects into their decisions.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's big talks going on and lots to take into account, isn't there, at the moment? Okay. And Ruben's question, as I know we've got some here, and one that I really loved that come in earlier, was around what would your advice be to someone who's talking or kind of engaging with a person who stutters? What can they do to help make kind of that person's life easier and conversation and speaking easier?
Yeah, sure. I think the main thing is to establish eye contact still.
Yeah.
Because if a person is speaking and like experiencing blocks and freezes, then it's a bit awkward at times for both parties, but still try to show that pay attention and avoid maybe checking your phone or the watch or anything, because that can actually increase tension because of the whole thing around time pressure, and just be patient and be understanding, and just appreciate that it's just their way of speaking.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lesson there kind of in any environment, isn't there, of like the power and the importance of listening and just giving someone your time. I think whether someone stutters or doesn't, just listening and being totally there in the moment, really like it. Okay, right, we're going to go back to some more questions. Excuse my, hang on here. So we've had lots of comments coming in, some of yours. Very brave and moving talk from Jane. Such a powerful talk from Luna. So brave to talk about this with so much emotion or attachment to it. Amazing, Sarah. That's from Holly. Wow, so inspiring and touching. This talk was delayed for so long. I quit alcohol this January. So that's to Zolt. So well done, Zolt. Right, we have a question. It's from Joe Rothbotham. I'm sorry if I've pronounced that wrong. I'm not very good at reading out loud. Impactful and so important. How can we support Sarah's cause more?
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. So I suppose from my experience losing my dad, I founded my own organisation called Warrior Kind, where we are on a mission to quash that stigma attached to mental health and normalise conversations around mental health, because ultimately my dad drank because he had a mental illness. He drank because society taught him that it was a weakness to discuss that. So Warrior Kind is on this mission to normalise any kind of illness that's associated with our mental health. So I suppose any support in terms of jumping on Facebook, jumping onto our social channels, letting people know that we're here to support. We're just in the process of converting into a charity where we're going to be fundraising to support people through their own treatments and the right treatments for them. So if somebody like my dad comes to me in the future when Warrior Kind is more established and says, I need to go to rehab, I can't get it via the NHS, or I can't, I'm not in a financial situation to afford that, then we want to be able to fund that treatment for them. So
very nice.
I think at the moment, any support in terms of helping spread that name, helping get us out there, because the more increased awareness about Warrior Kind, the more access to funding we get, the more access to sponsors, and ultimately the most important thing, the more people we can support.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a silver lining. You've brought something massively positive out of it to be able to help lots of other people.
Thank you.
Richard, so I know that you've done like a lot of work. You've done some work locally, and I kind of hinted towards it at your introduction. But I know you worked in Dover. Can you tell us a little bit more specifically kind of the work you did, and so that people who are new to systemics like can get a sense of how what you do works in action?
I've been fortunate enough to work with an organisation called Dover Arts Development, and they create projects within the community, for the community and for schools. They have taken the foresight to include systemics in their practice. By doing this, we can look at the history of the town, the war, the loss of industry within Dover. These things happened in the past. They happened, but the repercussions of those traumas exist in the present. So it's about looking at the cycle that keeps perpetuating through history, and that's what systemics also looks at, and being able to somehow interrupt or disrupt that cycle and create new possible potential futures and avenues.
Absolutely. And we've had a question come up around, like, is there an element of denial of kind of events that happened in the past within this practice? Is that kind of elements of what you're saying?
Denial, no. To wipe a slate clean is to disregard the sacrifices and the value of the people that have come before to create the system as it is. To be able to accept everything that is within the system, to also have an acknowledgement that those things happened, that complete acceptance, and then we can move forward.
Absolutely. I love that word, that acceptance, and in your delivery as well, you're so kind of peaceful yet powerful at the same time, and you just massively get that sense of acceptance, and because I think that's a really powerful word.
Wonderful, thank you.
So, Ruben, I can see I'm getting, let's see if these are questions coming for you. Oh, good, they are. Okay, so Luna is asking, how did you overcome your insecurities?
Well, the key thing was, like I started to speak about our challenges openly. And I started first with my friends and family, and then bit by bit, like I spoke about it in the workplace, and then I got focused on putting up posts and blog posts and clips, and then bit by bit, that grew and grew, and then there was a period, like I spoke about it on the radio and TV, and just like by the constant we're taking of her small steps. I speak about it because in by the past, when I was speaking and experiencing the blocks and freezes, like I stayed quiet about it, but it's clear it's there, and it was just a case of pointing out, and then by doing that, that encouraged by the people I spoke to, who then ask about it, I can inquire, and in the process of establishing our conversations around it, that gave me the confidence that, oh, like it's that's a part of me in the end, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Absolutely. I guess I like it. It's that kind of shedding, you know, like Sarah was saying about it in terms talking about it and raising awareness, and I love how you say about just not avoiding it, and therefore people don't feel uncomfortable because you're the one that's kind of bringing light to it, so they can go, oh, okay, if you're okay with it, then I'm okay with it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, I can see the magic hand has more things. What have we got now? Okay, we've got more for Sarah. How did you get to the place of forgiveness from the bitterness developed from the disease of alcoholism? That is from Luna.
Wow, that's a really good question. So I suppose after we lost him, I had to deal with a lot of internal guilt, because it weren't until he passed away that we understood that what he was going through. It weren't until he passed away that we were educated about what he had just been through. So there was a lot of guilt there that I had to process and deal with before I could even start my grieving process. And I suppose all of that accumulated into PTSD, which didn't show up until 18 months after he passed away. And it was in therapy that I actually forgave myself, forgave my dad, and put all that bitterness behind me, and then kind of accepted this new way of thinking and became a lot more open-minded. I always say to people, and I know this sounds really cliche, but I almost say my dad's death changed me for the better. It's made me a better person, because I am more empathetic, compassionate, understanding, and I've got this awareness. So I suppose with a lot of therapy, amazing therapy, amazing trauma therapy, EMDR therapy, which is what Prince Harry was just spoken about, and a form of hypnotherapy I had, and that worked wonderfully. I would say cured all of those demons that were left with me. And I'm at a place of peace, forgiveness, and everything I remember about my dad are amazing memories. And this journey that I'm on now, it's not to guilt trip anyone, it's not to create or bring back the past or to have those awkward conversations that make people feel uncomfortable. It's not to do that. This is solely to educate people, to make sure that anybody who is in my dad's situation now gets the support they deserve, and that people understand what they're going through.
Yeah, amazing journey, and
thank you.
Pleased to be able to help you share it.
Thank you.
So Richard, like I've started to see popping up the kind of the stuff you talk about is a new thing, but at the same time it's starting to surface in kind of the general kind of consciousness. What are your thoughts on kind of both the stuff that's you started to appear in the news? I believe there was something, was Prince Harry tweeting about things? And then my follow-up question to that would be, who, if you could have one person see your talk, who would that be? And then we can encourage people to tag them and at them. Who would you want to see your talk?
Probably be my father.
Okay.
Who has passed away now. And that's a very quick brief answer. For many reasons, actually. He was a pioneer who worked for the WHO, the World Health Organization. He worked in West Africa for 5 years. His next post was in Guyana, where I was born, and he worked there for 5 years. And then we moved to northern Saskatchewan in Canada, where he worked for another 5 years with the indigenous Cree and the Poconos Indian nations that were there. And all the while, his work somehow was a pioneer into systems, into realms in a different fashion. And you know, he's amazing, and I'd have loved for him to have seen this work, and he would have probably realised that he was already doing this work without it having a name pinned to it.
Absolutely. So pioneering you as well, taking this message
Absolutely.
out there.
Indeed.
That's really great stuff. So is there, I guess, what do you hope will happen next with your talk? I guess there's the conversations at a kind of organisational level, and you mentioned about the work you were doing in Dover, but also, I guess, on an individual level, where and how do you hope this will, if you could only choose one, most kind of resonate and make a difference?
Systemics is everybody's work. Every single person that has will and does exist belongs to systems. They affect our families, our organisations, our cultures. They affect our history. They determine what we do and become in the future because we operate within those systemic boundaries and limits. But we're never taught to recognise and actually work with systems ever in our lives. So if it was somehow possible that our awareness was opened up to enable us to be able to see how systems repeat, how trauma can be passed on through generations, how war repeats, how the people meeting for the G7 summit now need to recognise cycles of repetition to be able to move forward and take humanity into a new future.
Yeah, wow, big stuff. So that's very interesting as well, you're saying about kind of that patterns and that repetitions. I guess, is that the kind of key cue of when you know there's something there, is when it's continuing to come up? And
absolutely. Hidden loyalties, you see it all the time in history. Wars that for the Palestinians and the Israelis, for example, that war's been going on for 2,000 years. They're in a cycle of repetition. There are many other cycles to do with race, to do with culture, to do with society, and to do within family systems as well, and organisations.
Yeah. You've got lots of work. You've got your work cut out to you, taking this message out, because it's going to have, I hope it's going to have such a big impact, and it's such an important message, both for the individual and for society as a whole.
Yeah, thank you, Lou.
Absolutely. Okay, Ruben, I'm going to have a quick scan through. We've got a couple of comments. Fantastic talk, Ruben. Proud of you. That's from Amar on Facebook. Is that a friend, family?
Friend, unfortunately. No, it's good friend. Good friend.
What have I got? What are the three main things you would recommend from other people with a stutter to think about to help them embrace their stutter? That's from Kemi.
Ooh, okay. But the first thing is to speak about it first to your parents or your friends, and make sure you have like a safe space who to speak. The other thing is think about the other environments you're in. So if it's school, then like establish a connection to your teachers, and if it's and if for the person, if they're working somewhere, then speak to your manager and your team. Speak about like the challenges and the difficulties, and find a way to then also turn the workplace and the school environment in safe spaces, because the worst thing is stepping in to the workplace and being afraid of speaking, being afraid of the phone ringing, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And
those
you
are the key
mentioned,
things.
Awesome, thank you. And you mentioned about the workplace, and what would you say? I know it may be similar to the comment before around kind of what can the listener do, but is there anything else specific that in a workplace setting the employer or kind of colleagues can do to help someone who does stutter to encourage that safe space?
Yeah, it will be small things like in terms of the time. If there's a meeting and the agenda's packed, and they give you a time slot to speak about the work, but then like you see that a slot is small, that would then be a challenge to speak about the other work, or like a project well in the time frame. Back in the past, like if they're in the process of their job interviews, like I explained that at the start about the timing issue and the challenges, and they made sure that they did the interviews at the end of the day. Picks in case of the managers they were tight for timing, and be wary of the key days, of first stuttering the awareness day.
Okay.
It is every year on October 22nd.
Yep.
And that's a good chance per workplaces hear them post about it and maybe showcase it our employees.
Definitely. I think with all three of you, it's about kind of awareness, isn't it? Is like the key thing that we need to get out there. So when your talks come out in a few days' time, hopefully we can have all the people watching and many more, I'm sure, sharing them, because there's some very exciting stuff. Final, very quick question is just where people can find more information that can help them if they're interested in your topic. Sarah.
So if you log into warriorkind.co.uk, you'll get access to all of our supportive resources, all of the up-to-date information that we're doing on with Warrior Kind at the moment, access to our social channels, and I post a lot on my own Instagram account, which is sarah.drage.
Brilliant. Thank you.
You can go to my website, richardbundy.com, and there's links to my social media and an organisation I work with called reconnect.space as well. So
brilliant.
You can,
Thank you. And Ruben.
There's a few places. Is it stop holding back charity?
Yep.
Had I co-founded, and make sure you check as well a British Dammering Association by the website, and I also post a lot on my personal accounts and my LinkedIn and Instagram especially. So
good stuff.
Feel free to reach out.
Definitely, absolutely reach out with all of them. We will be adding a lot of the comments and helping you link in with the speakers' further support, the various other projects that they're working on around these topics. So guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, you're now TEDx Spokesmen Speakers. This is the end of our community session. We are now going on to session 3, which is creativity. During a time of so much uncertainty and change, I think we need creativity more than ever as a tool to be able to embrace these changes, to do things differently, and to find the opportunities in some of the obstacles that we've come up against and some of the limitations. In our next session, we're going to be looking at, well, how you can find and embrace new voices. Promoting creativity, and also, how do we turn those obstacles into opportunities? Our next 3 speakers will be addressing those very topics, and it's a final reminder to get hold of a pack of playing cards. If you had the email, or you might have seen our socials yesterday, you will need a pack of playing cards for the very end of this session. So this is your warning to make sure you have them for around 1:30. Okay, let's go into our first speaker of this session. She is a lady making waves in her industry of creative recruitment at a time over the last in the last year when the industry fell very silent. She was the one standing up, banging the drum and offering support and guidance for those most in need in the creative industries who were struggling. With her talk, Recruiting with Conscience When Hiring Diverse Talent, I give you Nikki Lyle.
There's a Mexican wave sweeping through the creative industry at the moment, hitting every company. The thing with waves is it's one of those things where you see it heading in your direction and you know you need to respond to it, but the moment it arrives to you, there's always a sort of like awkwardness to the whole thing, especially if you've never taken part in a Mexican wave before. Now, this wave is what I'd like to refer to as the current diversity hiring trend. Companies are wanting to hire more people of colour, as well as gay, trans and disabled people. And job ads these days are containing sentences such as BAME people, especially encouraged to apply. I'm a creative recruiter and I've had an influx of requests from companies that want me to help them find a more varied selection of people. The wave has hit them and they're responding accordingly. And in every diversity and inclusion manual, it mentions external recruiters like me as one of the solutions to help fill this talent gap. You think I'd be loving this. I've never been more popular by companies as a supplier, but I've got something I'd like to say, and it is an urgent appeal to every CEO and owner of a business. By all means, please get swept up in the wave, but I'd like you to consider your direction really carefully, because there's a chance that a non-carefully considered response could be doing more harm than good. And I'd like to explain why. Because it just becomes this really strange pick and mix recruitment game of, could we have a black, gay, trans or disabled person
human beings being collected like trophies, like when you go into reception and you sit there in see an open plan office of people strategically placed, looking at photos on the company website as well of people smiling. Look at us, aren't we diverse? But you can't have the D of diversity without the I of inclusion. As someone who's built their career on creative recruitment with conscience, I'd be doing a disservice to anyone that trusts me to find them a career home if I'm taking part in what essentially could be perceived as tokenism. What do you think would happen if someone from a marginalised background joins a company because they believe in their vision to be more diverse and inclusive? This individual leaves a secure job, throws caution to the wind, and they join this organisation. But this company is full of things like microaggressions because the other members of staff believe that this person was only hired because of factors such as the colour of their skin, their sexual orientation, or their disability. This new hire would leave. Because these situations can have such an effect on an individual's self-esteem, which can take months, if not years, to recover from. But not only that alone, it's also expensive. The cost of loss to a company when someone leaves, not only from a reputation point of view, but financials alone, can cost a company up to 200% of that person's salary in recruitment and training fees. If you're a CEO or an owner of a business, I want you to ask yourself a set of 3 really serious questions. 1, does your company currently have an open, diverse and inclusive work culture? 2, how do you think your staff would genuinely react if you started hiring a variety of people from diverse backgrounds? And 3, how willing are you to proactively fix this? One key reason you might want to is it affects your bottom line. I mean, studies have suggested that diverse teams can increase company performances by up to 30%. And also millennials and Gen Z proactively seek diverse companies to work for, so you'd also be missing out on top talent for your company as well. And this isn't when it's just about creative recruitment with conscience. This is when it becomes recruitment with common sense. And Joyce Parks, diversity advocate, put it best when she said, diversity isn't like choking down spoonfuls of oat bran because it's supposedly good for you. It's literally like eating out at a wonderful new restaurant every day. But I just want you to imagine for a second how much better your company will be if it's full of diverse, motivated individuals who are fully committed to pushing your company forwards because they wholeheartedly believe you're invested in developing them and pushing them forwards too. As a CEO of a company, you have a responsibility to set the tone for your whole organisation. Your employees look to you as their leader, so your influence trickles down to the rest of your company. But also in every organisation, there's key members of the team where if they're on board, everyone else is on board. And this diversity and inclusion training you're trying to implement won't work if these key people are rolling their eyes and referring to it as a waste of time. Everyone has to be on board with this for it to work. I work specifically within the design and advertising industry. And we all know that advertising essentially reflects society back to itself. But advertising fails as an industry if it doesn't contain people in boardrooms or design teams that reflect the rich tapestry of the culture that brands are trying to communicate with, because it's full of individuals that have the same lived experiences of the people brands are trying to talk to. As people, we have so many different identities. gender variant, cisgender, working class, middle class, Muslim, Christian, black, white, gay, straight. An identity is just a part of someone. But also our values are what are really important. And shared values are essential, as well as integration within society and an organisation. When I run industry leaders talks, which is where I ask some of the biggest names in advertising and design, what do you look for when recruiting for a creative for your team? And a lot of them said to me, well, along with grit, resilience and creativity, what we're really looking for is that person's voice. Because what makes a great creative is every life experience they've ever had being expressed into their work. And if you want your agency to be producing groundbreaking, progressive work that moves society and the world forwards, that's rich in culture, narratives and opinions, well, you need to not only hire diverse voices, but you need to really create a culture where everyone feels empowered to express their ideas and to make sure that when anyone talks, that everyone is there to listen and to truly hear their voices when they speak. So, as a CEO and an owner of a company, there are 3 things you can do in regards to diversity and inclusion within your company. 1, hire for potential, not just experience. See, when companies come to me and they say, we would like to find us a woman of colour who has experience working with some of the big sexy clients and some of the big key accounts and have proven experience there. This may not have happened. So what you need to do is hire 1 to 2 levels down, and you need to be invested in their growth. You need to be their mentor and they need to report directly to you. 2, take a look around you. Who already works in your organisation that's already been overlooked? Once you've identified talented individuals that already exist within your company, assign them a mentor, someone that is going to be that voice that will speak up for them in the room when they're not there and be invested in their growth as well. And 3, have an external assessor come in and talk to your employees. If you want people to feel they can truly express themselves and their ideas and their opinions on your company and culture, this person needs to be external. Don't use HR because they work for you and a huge part of their job is onboarding people. Just bring someone external in. Get them to listen to your employees and report that back to you and be prepared to really listen to that feedback. Also, educate yourself. There's so many resources out there at the moment, and you're going to need to make sure you learn, especially to be the right sort of leader to take us into this new world post-pandemic. The veil has fallen. Privilege has become openly acknowledged. We need to be allies, and we need to educate ourselves. In 2020, we all went through the same storm, but we navigated through it in different boats and realised that our mindsets are the motor, and our future vision and dreams are the lighthouse to help us navigate the waves to bring us safely home. And I'd like to end with a quote from the great poet Amanda Gorman. For there's always light if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it.
What a wonderful talk there from Nikki. I love this idea of giving people the opportunity to have their voices heard and to really listen. It absolutely resonates across, well, you could say many of our talks that we've heard today. And if you are a creative, absolutely go follow Nikki, because she is offering so much inspiration and advice and support for creatives. She is absolutely a lady to watch. If you have any questions that you would specifically like to ask Nikki about her talk or her work in general, then as always, put them in the comments. We will do our best to get to as many of them as possible when we do our speaker Q&A with the creative speakers at the end of the session. We have 2 more to go, so you have a bit of time, but get them in nice and early so they're right at that top of the list. Okay. Time to go into our second speaker for the creativity session. He is an artist and illustrator whose work you may have seen around the place in Folkestone and also further afield in Kent, well, and even internationally. This guy is on a mission to inspire us all to be more curious and also to have a greater appreciation for the curiosity and wonder of children. This guy has not only done the talk, but he's also done all of the illustrations that you will see and animations during his talk. So with his talk, Lessons from Children, the Experts in Wonder, I give you Greg Stobbs.
I am an artist and illustrator, and these little dynamos form a vital component in my creative fuel. Full to the brim with potential, hope, possibility and wonder. They're completely unprejudiced, completely honest, completely original. They all are. Isn't it strange then that instead of listening and learning from them, we ask that they sit still and be quiet so that we can educate them to be more like us? Shh! It's important that you're listening. What did I just say? Before they arrived, I've been taught to think that everything needed to be taken very, very, very seriously. Asked to leave my untamed thoughts, vivid imagination and wild ideas outside the classroom door, to be replaced by the same second-hand knowledge and information that everyone else was getting. I've been led to believe, like so many people, that life was about collecting and consuming as much knowledge and experience as possible to turn into this perfect, respectable, responsible version of myself. Along the way, something had gone missing. My ability to play, be wild, fluid, and learn from my mistakes have been replaced with a rigidity and a need to get things right. Instead of getting closer to this self-made goal of optimum successful meanness, I was getting further away. I wasn't happy. That's it. I wasn't happy. So I made a decision that changed my life and my practice as an illustrator. And it started at home. They began to talk. I began to listen. I gave myself 3 rules. 1, I would listen and keep a drawn diary of all their most important, bizarre, profound, and ridiculous words. 2, the drawing had to be quick and spontaneous. 3, I wasn't allowed to rub anything out, and I had to be completely true to what they said. In doing this, I rediscovered pure wonder. Imagination buried under an avalanche of information made its way back to the surface. Doors that had closed reopened. Eyes that had become tired were awake. This is what I learnt. That time travel is possible. Never follow the crowd. Believe in the impossible. Achieve greater balance. that we're made up of the same stuff as everything else. That the world is your back garden. That the biggest ideas can be explained in the simplest of ways. That what I do for a living doesn't define who I am as a person. That love is weird. That learning never ends. In constantly reaching ahead for a more perfect version of myself, I left something behind. Something better. A part of me. So I listened and learned from the little experts in potential, hope, possibility, and wonder. I was reminded that I was once like that, and could be again too.
What a magical talk there from Greg. I love this idea of simplicity and almost unlearning and finding that passion and finding self at the same time. Wonderful stuff, and absolutely beautiful illustrations from Greg there, as well as doing his talk. Very impressive. If you have any questions for Greg or any of either Nikki, or also we have David coming up later on, chuck them in the comments and we will do our best to get back to them when we do the Q&A, which will be coming up after our next speaker, who is actually our final speaker. Can you believe it? We are almost coming to an end. We have one final speaker and one final Q&A before we close today's event. So thank you so much for joining us and for all of the great, wonderful comments and questions that we have had so far. Okay, so with our final speaker, he is a professional comedian and magician, and he's also, would you believe, a quantum mind reader who has read the mind of Stephen Hawking, no less. He is talking about a topic that I think has challenged so many professions, but in particular the entertainment industry, but coming up against obstacles can be turned into opportunities. So with his talk, Virtually There, the rebirth of virtual magic in a post-pandemic world, I give you David Zambuca.
I'm a magician. Now, my job involves a lot of physical interaction between me and members of my audience. Physical interaction, like when I hand you that deck of cards, ask you to take a look through, remove one of the cards, then maybe I'll hand you a pen, ask you to sign your name across the face of the card, remembering, of course, to blow the ink dry. Then place that card back in the deck, give them one final shuffle, and then hand all that back to me so that I can find your card. Now that sounds pretty straightforward, but believe it or not, presently, that's something I'm not allowed to do anymore. In 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic arrived, my industry, entertainment, was one of the hardest hit. For theatres, it was curtains down, cruise ships were grounded, clubs, pubs, bars, restaurants, weddings, even funerals, and just about anywhere you can think of that could host live entertainment were all shut down. And thousands of magicians' careers, just like one of their magic tricks, vanished overnight, including mine. But magicians are a creative species. In fact, we've been finding various different ways to perform our magic on various and different mediums for many, many years. Harry Houdini, for example, in the early 1900s, was performing a marvelous mind-reading miracle on the then newly invented telephone. Radio soon followed, with magicians able to perform magic on the radio waves for listeners at home. Television is the medium that we are most familiar with, none more so than watching the grand illusions, the type performed by David Copperfield. I remember as a teenager growing up, seeing David on television making the Statue of Liberty disappear. And now there is a new genre of magic, and it is one that has been born in response to the post-pandemic world, and it's been dubbed virtual magic. So what is virtual magic? Well, a virtual magic show is a show that you watch using your laptop or computer, and the performer is on the other end, and you're connected via Skype or Zoom. So what's the difference of watching a show like that as opposed to watching a show on television? Well, the key difference is a virtual show is completely interactive. That means your choices, your decisions are all reflected in the performance in real time. In many cases, the magic happens in your hands at home. And remember, this performer is maybe thousands of miles away, potentially on the other side of the world. It's a really exciting time to be involved in magic right now, with many magicians now researching and developing material specifically for this platform. It's crazy to think that the technology that makes all this possible has been around us for many, many years. It just took a worldwide global pandemic to make us learn how to use it properly.
A wonderful talk there from David, obviously very much applying to the entertainment industry, but I'm sure will resonate with many industries and many people who have had a challenging year past. I love how he brings what could have been a limitation and has turned it into an opportunity and created something really new and exciting. If you have any questions for David or for any of the other speakers in this session, this is your chance to get them in. And in the meantime, while you're doing that, we've got a bit of a treat for you. It's become a little bit of a tradition to have a little surprise extra thing at the end. And because we have whet your appetite for some magic, I'm excited to say that we have David Zambuca live in the house, who's coming in to do a live magic trick. So I will hand the mic over and say, and welcome to the stage, David Zambuca.
I'm David Zambuca, and this is a live demonstration of virtual magic, which you've just heard me talking about in my talk. Now, we live in a world currently where I'm not allowed to touch any of you, and I'm not referring to any upcoming court cases. Of course, I'm talking about the lockdown restrictions. However, due to this virtual platform, I'm going to connect all of you to one another through me. Imagine me as a great conduit, like Professor X, Charles Xavier, and you are all my mutants. You are going to now connect with one another, wherever you are in the world, using that deck of cards that we asked you to grab before this started. So take out your deck. Now, you only need 4 of those playing cards, okay? I have my 4 here. It doesn't matter which 4 cards you have, just any 4 cards, just take them out of the deck right now. Okay, great. I want you now to shuffle those cards and make sure that they're mixed. Now, of course, each one of you out there could have any number of different playing cards. I couldn't possibly know which card that you have, and now that you're shuffling them, you don't even know which order that they are in, okay? Now, take the cards, put them together, and now you're going to fold them in half, all 4 of them in half like this, okay? And really make that crease tight. If you want, you can open them out and bend them back the other way, okay? This is going to help with what you're going to do next, okay? So really make that a good, solid crease, okay? Because now you're going to tear those cards in half, right the way down your crease, so that you are left with 2 packets, one left, one right. This is now your first choice, okay? You can choose to put either of these 2 packets on top of the other to make just one packet, okay? One packet of torn cards. What I'd like you to do now is to take the top 3 pieces, from the top of your packet, just those 3 pieces, and you're going to place those somewhere in the middle of the other packet in your other hand. That means not back on top, not on the bottom, but somewhere in the middle, okay? And then just give those a square. Oh, I forgot one thing. Sorry, I'm quite new to all of this. Take the top piece, okay? Don't look at it, and just place it somewhere out of sight for now. You can put it in your pocket or on the table beside you. We're going to need that maybe a little later on. Okay, so you've still got this packet. I want you now to choose whether to take 1, 2, or 3 pieces. It's entirely up to you, okay? I'm going to take 2. Take them from the top and place those again somewhere in the middle of your packet and push them in. Okay, you're with me so far? Good. Here's another choice. You're not going to choose to take none, 1, 2, or 3 cards and throw them away. Remember, that's 0, 1, 2, or 3 pieces. Just throw them away. Okay, we're left with this small packet here now. I talked about connection. We're going to connect, and we're going to use the days of the week in order to do this, because there's a beautiful piece of poetry that I'm going to use now that's going to illustrate what we're going to do. As we go through each day of the week, you're going to take a piece from the top, the very top piece, and place it underneath for every day that I mention. As I said, I have a very inspiring piece of poetry in order for us to do this today. Okay, ready? Okay. I met a girl on Monday. I took her for a drink on Tuesday. We were making love by Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday, on Saturday. We chilled on Sunday. I bet you probably needed to after that. Must have been taking something. Okay, so we've gone through the whole week, okay? Now one more process just for us to really connect, okay? To really feel the love, because it's all about love. Love that you have for me, and I can feel it. But let's really show it. You remember the kids thing with the flower, she loves me not. You take the flower petal off and throw it away. We're going to do the same with these pieces of card. You're going to basically say, she loves me, take the top piece and place it underneath. She loves me not, we're going to throw away. And we're going to do that, and you're going to keep doing it until you're left with just one piece at the end. She loves me not. She loves me, she loves me not. She loves me not. You're left with one piece, one half of a card. Now, you took 4 random cards, you shuffled them, we mixed them, you made decisions all the way along, which ones you were going to throw away, which ones you were going to keep. They've been mixed and mixed and mixed, yet you've been left with this one piece. But there is another piece, the piece that I asked you right at the beginning just to place to one side. I put mine here in my pocket. If you take that out and slowly turn it around, you'll find that those 2 halves should match.
David, thank you so much. I'm going to come join you, and I can confirm, look, I was doing it behind the scenes. They do indeed match. I have 4 diamonds.
Mine was the only one that didn't match. Mine was the only one. It was never supposed to, but all of yours did.
Yeah, indeed. And guys, we want to send us the photos, tag them on Facebook, TEDx Folkestone, hashtag TEDx Folkestone 2021, so that David can see them. Thank you so much, David. Awesome. They match. They match. Amazing stuff. We don't need those. I quite like this, throwing cards around. I'm going to get rid of that one. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. It was great, wasn't it? Virtual magic, exciting stuff. Okay, that was David Sambuca. We have a few minutes. If you want to ask him some questions, not about how he does that trick, he is not going to tell you how he does it. So any other questions about his talk, chuck them in the comments, because we have a few minutes now before we will be going into the Q&A. Before we do that, I have one final thing to talk about. And this time, it's not so much what we've been doing, but it's what you guys have been doing, because we ran, our outreach team and our marketing team ran a mascot design competition where we asked you guys at home, we sent it around to schools and to a couple of adults as well, to ask them to come up with some designs for what should our mascot be for 2021. It had to include our classic Folkestone seagull and our brand colours. And my God, you did not disappoint. We've had loads of entries, and I'm excited to welcome to our virtual stage our very own Folkestone's Shane Record. Hello. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So Shane has been involved. You've been helping to judge our designs, haven't you?
That's correct.
So we're going to, I want to hear a little bit more about some of the designs, because you've helped pick the winner, and momentarily we will reveal the winner. But first, tell us, what did you think of some of the designs that came through and kind of the Folkestone community artists that we've got?
Well, fantastic. First of all, there were lots of entries, which was great. There was, I think, 100 or more.
Wow.
And lots of different ones, lots of seagulls featuring, and I like the fact that, because your theme was New Horizons, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So there was lots of horizons and seagulls, and so it was very uplifting. It was nice to have a look at. So thank you, everyone, for all of the extremely high quality submissions, and the many of them, the many people that thought that they'd have a go.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really nice thing, isn't it, to be able to bring this positivity at a time when things have been challenging, but to be able to bring, I guess, what seems to be very key themes this year is creativity and community
and positivity
yeah, totally being able to bring those together. So thank you so much
You're
for being
welcome.
Involved in that. I want to go now. We're going to have some runners up first, I think, aren't we? And we're going to have the winners as well. So we're going to secretly reveal them. Do you want me to hold them while you pick the right ones?
What I'll do is we'll hold up the
runners up first.
Runners
or do we want to
up.
go for the
So
winners?
we've got the commended.
Commended. Okay.
So these are the three which are commended, and I will read out the names.
Okay.
I've got the names somewhere.
Okay, we're very rehearsed.
Right.
Okay, shall I go? Should we go? We're going with this one first. We're going for the big reveal. You ready?
Yeah, that one first.
Okay,
that is
we're
the
going
highly commended. That is Luke. That is Luke Arter. That one.
Woo!
Congratulations to him.
Well done, Luke.
And now the next one.
The next one is.
So hold on.
Okay, is this one, which is.
Yeah, that is Alicia White.
There
Alicia
we go.
White.
Well done, Alicia. Very nice. I love that design. It's very clever. Okay, and then our final one of the highly commended is
Lewis. Yeah, sorry. That is Luke. Sorry, that one was Luke Arter, excuse me, and then the first one was Lewis Christopher. So I got that wrong.
We'll make sure we put them in the group, so in the chat, so you can see. And then this is our final highly commended one. This is what an awesome suit he has got. Like, he is a cool dude.
Yeah,
like.
he is cool. It's very visual. It's very clear. Now. So there were two. There are two winners. One is a digital winner, which you'll show.
We're going to show separately.
Separately, which is really upbeat. It will put a smile on everyone's face, and that is by Kevin Rivera.
Congratulations, Kevin!
Congratulations
you
to
are
Kevin.
our digital winner.
Now, for the winner of the paper ones, which I thought was fantastic. I'm going to hold this up myself. Is this lovely design
Amazing.
Here. And this is by Cheyenne Warman. I hope I've pronounced that correctly.
Go up closer? We can see it a bit closer. Come closer. Well done. Woo!
Now, what I like about this one is there's light coming through the feathers on the bird. And so you've got an effect of light, and plus it's very bold and reproducible, so it would look really good, bigger, smaller, and there's effects of light, so it's interesting to look at. So I thought this one was great.
Awesome.
And it stood out immediately for me. Look, and even when you take it back, you can still see how
That's so
good
impressive.
it looks.
And it's even layered, isn't it? I think the seagull's been stuck on the
it's
top.
like a collage of different materials.
That is some serious detail.
It's very good.
There's an artist in the making right there.
There is. Cheyenne, I hope to meet you.
Cheyenne.
Yeah.
If Cheyenne, keep up the good work. Shane gives you a big thumbs up. Thank you so much for everyone who entered. Shane, thank you so much for judging. We're going to be showing a lot of the runners-up, some more runners-up at the very end of the event, so people can see all of those, including the digital entry, which was from Kevin, wasn't it, our winner. And we will see if we can get them on Facebook as well, shared, so that everyone can see them in their full glory, because they are absolutely wonderful. Shane, thank you so much.
Pleasure, as always. Nice to see you.
You do.
Take care.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to clear these up because these are lovely and we want to have them on nice display. I'm going to hand these over to the magic arm to take over from me. Okay, so we have one final bit to do, which is our final Q&A. You've been sending in your questions, which I'm sure are going to be passed to me by the magic of our virtual studio that we have here, and we're going to go into our creative Q&A. So I'm pleased to welcome to the virtual stage, we have Nikki Lyle, we have Greg Stobbs, and we have David Zambuca. Guys, thank you so much. And how does it feel to be TEDx speakers? Nikki, I'm going to come to you first.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm someone that's always really struggled with public speaking. So for me, I've had to overcome so much to even get to this stage. And I just feel really relieved, actually, that it's all done and it's out there now into the world.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Greg, how do you feel?
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Really, really strange.
Yeah.
Not something I'm used to at all, speaking in front of this many people online about something I really care about. Just very odd that it's near the end and it goes out there into the wild.
And I think for you it was a particularly good year, wasn't it? Because of the additions of the artwork, it perfectly suited kind of obviously your style and what you do as an artist.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Good stuff. And David, how do you feel?
An enormous sense of relief that it's over, finally. It's done. I can clear my head out, forget all about it. It's out there.
You can stop doing your talk every kind of spare moment in your head.
Yeah, when I'm driving, when I'm showering, when I'm brushing my teeth. Yeah, I can go back to normal life.
Absolutely.
As normal as it is right now.
Yeah. I can tell you the speakers tend to talk along to their talk. So when we say, did you enjoy watching your talk for the first time? They often go, no, I was repeating it in my head still, because it takes a few months to get that out of their system. So well done, guys. You did absolutely amazingly. I'm going to come to some questions now. We've got a couple of comments and bits. Great talk, Nikki. Very inspiring. Hire the potential, not the experience. What a quote. Fabulous from Nikki. Marianne also says very inspiring. Just a comment. There is so much of this in your work. It's wonderful. That's from Maureen. Okay, we're going to hit you with the first question. What could you do as an employee to hold your company accountable for committing to diversity? Oh, that's a good one. That's from Jennifer.
Yeah. By the way, thank you so much, everyone, for all your comments. These are really, really tough questions, right? And I think that what we need to do is, if ever you want to take some quotes from this talk to your employer, as an employee, we need to be aware of ourselves. Make sure that we're reading. There's so many different books we can read at the moment in regards to like diversity and inclusion. So I think it always starts with ourselves, actually, realising if we have any unconscious bias within ourselves, and then taking that to your employer and then really vocalising it as something that needs to be implemented in your company at all times.
Definitely good stuff. So as always, employer or the individual, education comes first, and keep kind of banging that drum, really, isn't it? Make it vocalised, make it heard.
Exactly, definitely.
Good stuff. Okay, I'm going to come to David because that is who is next on my sheet. Sorry, I would normally go around naturally, but David, we're going to come to you.
So no one wants to listen to Greg anyway.
We will come back to Greg. This is the problem with having to hold a microphone. Comments, amazing talk and incredible trick. I assume she got a match. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. That's from Laura and also Luna. How can I support magicians locally to me while we can't come to see you perform? That's from Kasha.
Okay, that's a good question. I mean, so magicians, like all live entertainers right now, can't perform live, although that that's starting to lift now. But yeah, there's a whole host of virtual magic shows being advertised. So yeah, I mean, you can watch it in the comfort of your own home. Tickets are very, very cheap. Many of these performers are literally just doing it for cost, really, just to get anything in, trickling in. So yeah, that's a big help to those performers out there.
And I assume the more people are watching them, the more they'll continue afterward. You know, if we go and come back to normal, do you think virtual magic will continue?
That is one of the questions that magicians worldwide now, having invested a lot of money in cameras and microphones and lights and green screens. Yeah, I hope that it will continue. I think that a lot of the businesses out there, certainly on the corporate level, have now realised that wow, we can have a speaker, you know, or a performer at our event, you know, without those costs of flying them over and putting them up in a hotel. So I'm hoping that yeah, the virtual world will continue.
Yeah, awesome. I hope so too. So we're going to come back to Greg. Comments. We've got incredible talk from Greg. Imagination is such an incredible creative tool. That's from Maureen. And then Christina and Ben say just a comment. There is so much of this in your work. It's wonderful. Okay, now let's come to some questions. We've got a few. Firstly, what an amazing inspirational talk. As a head teacher, I'm interested to hear what you feel about how the school system stifles creativity and what you would change. Oh, okay, I feel this could be a big question.
Just quickly before we go to the question, mine matched.
Yay!
Richard did just give them to me.
Everybody else is matched. But that was the idea.
So yes, head teacher, amazing. What a brilliant first question. Thanks very much. So within the school system, I think we do have an excellent school system. I've got to be very cautious to say that I'm not attacking knowledge-based learning. I'm not telling people that they shouldn't be the way things should be done. I'm saying that there should be more balance. Young people who are not given the opportunity to be listened to don't get the opportunity to thrive. Through the way that we teach, it's very much knowledge-based, question and answer, and the answer being the most important part of that equation. This isn't the way that most young people's minds work. So really young people, toddlers, have double the amount of synapses in their mind than an adult.
Wow.
The pathways that they have are multiple, almost infinite. And that gets closed down the more that we know, the more that we're given information, the more that we're given experience. A lot of those doors are closed. All of the possibilities. So, for example, the idea that we're in a solar system, we're in the middle of this, where there's a sun in the center of it. Amazing to know that. But it also stops us from all of the possibilities of where we might be. That we could be in the eye of a space whale floating through nothingness, and the sun is its pupil. There are so many possibilities for other surreal, bizarre, odd bits of information that aren't fact-based, that open the mind to new possibilities. If you put into the curriculum time to just stand back and allow young people to speak without, and it's hard for teachers in particular who do an amazing job, to take a step back and just let them do it. Go for a walk, let them see stuff, let them show you stuff. Don't always be, look at this, this is what you should be doing, this is the next thing to do.
Yeah.
There should always be time to allow them to speak.
Amazing. And I love the crossover from the different ideas. You know, Nikki's about giving people time to have their voices heard, and going into what Berry was saying in the Q&A about questions. I love how it all links in, but we're all coming at it from different angles, but it's very inspiring stuff. Love that. Thank you, Greg. Okay, let's see what other questions we have. So what little things can we do to support what you're saying? That comes from Jeff.
Okay, so I think definitely as a business looking into hiring people that are diversity and inclusion consultants, and what a lot of people do is they may hire them and companies and expect them to almost work for free. There's a lot of free labour that's expected, but actually paying people as well that work within that industry to share their knowledge and their wisdom all the time, of their own lived experiences as well. from being from a mixture of different backgrounds. Can you just repeat some part of the question again, please, Lee?
What little things can we do to support the ideas that you're sharing?
As individuals?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess just going back again about educating yourself, reading books and taking ownership of your own kind of... Sorry, this is where my nervousness from public speaking comes through. So anyone that's ever nervous of public speaking that wants to do a TED Talk, you can do it.
Yeah.
But this is where I get caught off guard every now and then. Just being
also,
honest.
You have been completely thrown with these questions. We've not seen them. I've not seen them until we're reading them out. So no, it's really good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good stuff. Okay, we're going to flip over to David. What else have we got here? Okay. So from Lisa says, do magicians need a new set of skills that they didn't need before? And also, where do they learn it? Do you come up with the tricks yourself, or do you go to magician school?
Well, I went to Hogwarts, which I graduated from many years ago, and well, that's quite a big question. So yeah, the first part: do magicians now who want to get into virtual magic, do they have a new set of skills to learn? The answer is yes. There's been a steep learning curve for all of us, more so on the technology. The magic was kind of always there. As I said in the talk, even Houdini performed a magic trick over the telephone, and he really did, and it was, you know, this sort of mind-reading feat. Which amazed people at the time. And then, of course, magic on the radio, which sounds, you know, crazy. It's like, seriously, there can't be. But there was magic on the radio. And so magicians have been sort of pioneering this work for many, many years. So from the magic point of view, no, although there's been a lot of exciting developments over this last year. People have really been focused on bringing magic to these virtual platforms. And there's been, some great leaps and bounds in magic just recently. So, but no, it's not mandatory, but it's another great string to have to your bow.
Absolutely.
I just thought it was an idea worth sharing, which
well
you can
done.
use
You're
that
right
if you
on
want.
brand there. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, and Greg, we're going to have one final question because we are creeping up to the hour. Okay. As a parent, can you influence my own, but I assume maybe I can influence, as a parent, let me start again. As a parent, I can influence my own, I assume children, but what do you think will make teachers and educators listen and act impactfully?
Oh, wow.
Sorry, I know I'm throwing you in with these questions.
I wrote that one, actually.
Thanks very much, David.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Give me a moment.
Let me look at the other questions. We are going to be doing follow-up questions and trying to do some little films with these guys, so we can give you time to think about the answers because you've very much been put on the spot.
No, honestly, I mean, I'm not a politician, thankfully, and I don't feel like I'm in a position to kind of tell people the rules and tell them the way things should be done. You can affect your own children. You can affect potentially your own children's schools, and in those kind of incremental little effects you have, that then passes on to other children. Not necessarily even through the school system, just at playtime, just in going out, going around to each other's houses, all of those sorts of things. It doesn't always have to be that we have to change everything about the school system fundamentally. It's great that children are learning knowledge.
Yeah.
But it's also great to give them the opportunity to be listened to outside of school.
Very nice. Very good answer for a very complex question on the spot.
Gave me a second.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Amazing. I'm so sad we have to kind of wrap up our Q&A, but one final time, if we're going to do some questions, hopefully behind the scenes, be sharing them after the event for any of the questions we didn't get to because there were lots. I want to know, where can people find more info about all of you guys and what you're doing and your ideas? Nikki, I'll come to you first. Where can people find you?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me there. Also Instagram, I'm very active as well, lots of different videos, etc. all around diversity and inclusion as well. And my website, which is www.nikkilyle.com.
Brilliant. Double K-Y for wow, N-I-double-K.
Yeah, N-I-double-K-Y. Yeah, thanks.
And Greg, where can people find you?
I'm originally a graffiti street artist, so on walls all over the place.
Yeah.
And I'm now working on children's books, working on a children's book with Lem Sissay at the moment.
Nice.
As well as a couple of author illustrated pieces that are coming up next year. You can find me in my Instagrams. Squirrel Art is what I work under on the street art stuff. Greg Stobbs Illustration on the illustration side. And my website is squirrelart.org.
Brilliant. Do you want to spell that for us?
Oh, yeah. SQUIRLART.org.
Brilliant. Had a moment there where I'm kind of visual and I'm like, wait, I know what it looks like, but spelling it out loud. And David, where can people find more info and more magic from you?
Well, I'll be in the pub, so probably find me in there, probably just hanging over the bar. But after that, you can find me. I'm all over the internet, like all of us. Not necessarily for all the right reasons, but ignore those sites. No, that's coming up. Yeah, I know. So just being harassed now by the crew.
That are behind the scenes.
The questions are hard enough as it is without the crew joining in. Actually, just want to say as well quickly, I do want to say thanks to the guys behind the scenes because no one else has bothered. So I know they'll make me look good. You can find me, obviously on the internet. My website is davidzambuca.co.uk, so you can find me on there. If you just Google David Zambucas, there aren't any others, so I'll just come to the top of the list.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much. If you would like to stay, you can, because I'm going to bring everybody, well, not everybody, but enough as we can get in safely. Thank you so much, guys. Awesome job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Give them a round of applause. Come on, guys. Give them all a round of applause. Everyone else, come in. Okay. This is where we all go a little bit crazy. Okay, where do I stand so I'm not in the way? I'll stand over here. Woo, I'm not in shot. This is your amazing crew that have delivered this event today. As you can see, there are so many people, and this isn't even everybody. Amazing speakers, amazing volunteers who have all given up their time for free with so much excitement and enthusiasm. So one final big round of applause for everybody. Thank you so much. I just want to say a final shout out to all our sponsors without whom it wouldn't be possible. Earlscliffe Sixth Form College, the Workshop Folkestone, who have been our host today, Prisma Broadcast and Eastcliff Creatives for those amazing videos, and East Kent College for our incredible sign that is absolutely huge, and then Quarterhouse, Folkestone Quarterhouse for being our wonderful venue where we filmed it all. So thank you so much to them. If you would like to see all of the talks that you've seen today, they will be going out on TED, on bigted.com over the coming days. So keep your eyes out for them. And of course, if you're not already, why aren't you? Follow us on social media and we will be sharing them through there as well. So keep in touch. Right, final round of applause as we say, thank you very much. Have a great weekend, Folkestone. Bye. Take a bow.